My name is Kate, and I'm 40 years old. I've been married to my husband, Mason, for 10 years. He's the same age as me, and we used to work together in the same department before moving to different branches. Mason is a responsible man who's well liked by his team. He can be a bit proud and doesn't like showing any weakness. He used to be very confident and masculine, and everyone at work admired him. He was expected to be promoted without any trouble. I'm the opposite, quiet and shy. I was surprised when he showed so much interest in me since we have such different personalities. After dating for 2 years, he proposed to me with a big bouquet of roses. I had never felt so loved by a man, so I immediately said yes and looked forward to starting a great life together. But then, things took a turn. We ended up living with his parents, which I wasn't expecting. I wanted to say no, but Mason insisted, saying his parents were good people and that they were really excited to have me live with them. I couldn't refuse. For the past 10 years, I've lived with his parents, and it's been really tough. Every morning, my mother-in-law would complain, "Kate, you forgot to clean the entrance again," she'd say, even after I'd already made breakfast for everyone. I would apologize, but she'd reply, "Just saying sorry isn't enough, go clean it now." Even though I had to go to work, I was treated like a servant in the mornings. I had to wake up at 5 a.m. to cook breakfast and clean, while my mother-in-law, who didn't work, didn't help at all. I'd rush through everything, go to work, come home, and immediately start making dinner. By the time I went to bed, I was completely exhausted. This daily routine drained me, and I became weak and sick. I think it was all the stress. My mother-in-law would continue to criticize me, saying things like, "Do the cleaning properly so the neighbors don't think we're neglecting it." She'd say this while sitting in the living room, eating the breakfast I made. "If you don't hurry, you'll be late for work," she'd add. Throughout all of this, Mason never defended me. His father would pretend not to notice, hiding behind his newspaper. Living with my in-laws has been terrible. The stress made me lose so much weight that I started to look unhealthy. My period stopped, and I couldn't get pregnant. Despite this, my mother-in-law kept blaming me for everything. Before marriage, I was healthy and cared about my appearance. Now, I looked different, and I didn't even recognize myself. The stress and the shock of my reflection made me feel depressed, and I became completely submissive to my mother-in-law. I lost all motivation to leave the house. Then, I received the news that my father had suddenly passed away in an accident. I hadn't visited my parents in a long time because Mason and his mother would criticize me for wanting to go. I regret not seeing him more before he passed away. My parents' home is about an hour's drive from my in-laws' house, so it's not far. I asked if they would come to my father's funeral, but they refused. When I told them about it, they quickly cut me off, saying, "Just have your family there," without even letting me finish. I was shocked by how cold they were. I simply said, "I understand," though I was angry and sad. At the funeral, many people came because my dad had many connections. They all showed how much he was loved. When I saw my mother, she was shocked by how much weight I had lost. She asked if I was sick, worried that I might be seriously ill. I assured her I was fine, but the stress of everything had taken a toll on me. After calming her down, I decided to tell her the truth about what had been happening at home. I explained how my mother-in-law had been treating me, and how I had been feeling exhausted. I told her it was like being bullied by my in-laws. She gave me a piece of paper, my father's will. It said that I was going to inherit $790,000. The money was mine to decide how to use. I was stunned by the amount but also felt hopeful. With this inheritance, I could finally leave my in-laws' house and build a life for myself away from the stress. When I got back home, I did the usual chores, thinking about the money and my desire to leave. I wanted to talk to Mason about it. That night, when we were alone, I brought up the inheritance. When I told him how much I was inheriting, he was shocked but happy. Then, before I could suggest anything, he said something that shocked me even more. "We need to transfer that money to my mom's bank account." I was confused. "Why? I inherited it, so it's mine." He got angry and slammed his hand on the table, saying, "A wife's money belongs to her mother-in-law." I couldn't believe what he was saying. I was scared. The next morning, both Mason and his mom approached me, demanding that I give them the inheritance money. "But it's mine," I protested. They insisted I transfer it to my mother-in-law's account. It felt like they were determined to take it, no matter what. I was so tired of fighting. Then Mason showed me a divorce paper and said, "If you don't change your mind, I'll divorce you." He had already signed the divorce papers. He told me to go back to my parents' house, and if I apologized, he might reconsider. I was stunned, holding the divorce form, realizing that I had never truly been supported in this house. I had been paying my share of living expenses and doing all the housework, yet Mason and his mother always looked down on me. They even tried to take my father's inheritance. I knew that if I stayed, I might give in to their pressure and hand over the money, but this inheritance was my father's gift to me, and I wasn't going to let them take it. With the signed divorce papers in my hand, I realized I now had control over my future. I swore to myself that I wouldn't give up the inheritance and made up my mind to act. After work that day, I went to my mother's house. "Welcome home, sweetie," my mother greeted me with a warm smile. She had made a home-cooked meal, and I was so moved by the taste of her food. It had been so long since I had enjoyed a meal prepared by someone else. As I ate, I cried because it tasted so good. I told my mother about everything that had happened with Mason and his mom. She was shocked, but told me, "The inheritance is yours, and you have the right to decide how to live your life from now on." She comforted me as I cried. After staying with my mom for a week, I decided to go back to my in-laws' house. "Well, I'm going now," I said. "Take care," my mother replied. I was no longer afraid of going back. With a clearer mind, I returned to my in-laws' house. Mason and his mother were waiting for me, arms crossed. "Have you thought about what you did?" they asked. "Yes, I'm sorry. Please let me live here again," I apologized, but it was insincere. My mother-in-law smirked. "Then hurry up and give us the inheritance," she demanded. I lied and told them the inheritance process was taking longer than expected, that it could take up to 6 months or more. They seemed satisfied, thinking I would eventually give them the money. As soon as I returned, they started criticizing me for the house being messy. "You didn't do your duties as a wife. Clean up quickly." The house had only been messy for a week, but it was filthy. It was impressive how dirty it had gotten in such a short time. The old me would have been devastated by the state of the house, but now, I didn't care. I just did what they asked without complaining. 10 months later, it was my mother-in-law's birthday. As usual, she was going on a trip, and of course, they didn't take me with them. "Have you received the inheritance yet?" my mother-in-law asked. "It should arrive today," I lied. "Well, that's perfect. The $790,000 is a gift for my mom. Make sure to transfer it to her account before we return." I knew the inheritance wouldn't arrive so soon, but I didn't say anything. I just smiled and saw them off, saying, "Take care and have a safe trip." Once they were gone, I finally put my plan into motion. I had been waiting for this moment for a long time. They would be shocked when they came back, but it no longer mattered to me. I quickly packed my things and moved out of my in-laws' house. Using my father's inheritance, I built a beautiful new home. I invited my mother to live with me, and we were both so happy to finally be free from the constant stress. That night, we celebrated our new home with a special meal prepared by a chef. The next day, I got a call from my ex-husband. "Hey, what's going on?" he asked, confused because all my things were gone. "I'm not coming back. Goodbye." I tried to hang up, but I could hear my mother-in-law yelling on the other end. "What do you think you're doing? Where are you?" she screamed. "I don't need to answer that. You told me to clean the house, so I packed my things. It's not funny. And by the way, you still haven't transferred the inheritance. How many times do I have to tell you that your money is mine?" she shouted. "I'm single now," I said. When I said that, my mother-in-law went silent. "I'm divorced. I signed the divorce papers Mason gave me. We're strangers now. Goodbye." I hung up, laughing as I felt a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. After that, my ex-husband called many times. When I had the chance, I answered and let him and my mother-in-law yell at me. I recorded those calls to use as evidence of their harassment. I knew it wasn't uncommon for ex-husbands to be abusive, and I planned to report them to the police. The police acted quickly, visiting my ex-in-law's house to issue a warning. It was embarrassing for them, especially since my ex-husband had a high position at work. His colleagues, who didn't like him, spread rumors about him. Eventually, even people from my work heard about it. I told my colleagues, yeah, I'm divorced. The bullying from my mother-in-law and my ex-husband's abuse was too much. I made sure others overheard, and soon, the gossip spread further. My ex-husband's boss heard about it and wasn't happy. "You've got a lot of bad rumors going around," his boss said. "I decided to transfer you." His transfer was to a branch with the worst performance, a remote area with no entertainment or anything fun. It was clear that his career had fallen apart, and there was no chance for promotion anymore. As for my ex-mother-in-law, she was devastated by her son's fall from grace. She became reclusive and eventually developed depression. It seemed she also had dementia and often caused disturbances at home. My ex-father-in-law had to care for her, despite their strained relationship. It felt like justice for everything they had put me through. Now, my mom and I are living happily together. We even started gardening in our spacious yard, something I never would have done if I was still in that house. Gardening has become a new hobby that has brought me joy and health, something I didn't have before due to the stress. I'm so happy to have cut ties with my ex-in-laws and to be living a peaceful, fulfilling life now.
I stared at my reflection in the gallery window, adjusting the collar of my blazer one last time. The bright lights inside illuminated my artwork, casting long shadows across the polished floor. In less than an hour, I'd be unveiling my first solo exhibition, Fragments of Memory, a collection that had taken me 2 years to complete. My name is Quinn, and this was supposed to be the biggest night of my life. Funny how the universe has its own plans. "Everything looks perfect, sweetheart," my grandmother Helen said, appearing beside me. She reached up to smooth a stray strand of hair from my face, just like she'd done since I was little. "Samuel, doesn't she look beautiful?" My grandfather nodded, his eyes crinkling with pride. "Just like her grandmother," he said, making Helen blush. Even after 45 years of marriage, they still acted like teenagers sometimes. Mr. Jameson, my art teacher and mentor, was directing the final placement of a large canvas. "Quinn, come here moment. I think we should adjust the lighting on the empty chair." That piece was the centerpiece of my exhibition, a stark painting of an abandoned dining room chair, surrounded by scattered photographs and letters. Most viewers would see it as a commentary on loss and absence. Only my grandparents knew its true meaning. The first guests were starting to arrive when I heard a familiar voice that made my blood run cold. "Darling, the composition is divine. You always did have your mother's eye for drama." I turned slowly, my heart pounding. There she was, Vanessa Harper, my mother, looking exactly as she had 5 years ago when she'd walked out of my life. Designer dress, perfect makeup, that practiced smile she'd used in all her old television appearances. Behind her stood my father, Ethan, shifting uncomfortably like he always did in her presence. "What are you doing here?" I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. "Oh, sweetie," Vanessa laughed, moving toward me with open arms. "Did you really think I'd miss my only daughter's first gallery opening? The critics are already buzzing about you online. This could be huge for us." I stepped back, bumping into a pedestal. Us. Of course. The prodigal daughter of former starlet Vanessa Harper, emerging from obscurity to carry on the family legacy. The press will eat it up. She turned to the growing crowd, her voice carrying across the gallery. "Everyone, I'm so proud to introduce my talented daughter." Stop. The word came out sharper than I'd intended, drawing curious looks from nearby guests. "You need to leave. Both of you." Ethan finally spoke up, his voice soft and pleading. "Quinn, please. We just want to." "Wanna what, Dad? Show up after 5 years because you think I might be successful? Because there might be something in it for you?" My grandfather stepped between us, his presence steady and protective. "I think it's best if you both go." Vanessa's smile faltered for just a moment before returning, brighter and more artificial than ever. "Don't be ridiculous, Samuel. We're family." "Family?" I laughed, the sound harsh and unfamiliar in my throat. "Family doesn't abandon their child to chase fame. Family doesn't." I stopped, noticing the phones coming out, people recording our confrontation. That's when I saw it, the slight gleam in my mother's eyes. She'd planned this, wanted to create a scene. Even now, she was positioning herself to face the cameras better. I took a deep breath, straightening my shoulders. "Security," I called out, my voice steady. "Please escort these people out. They're not on the guest list." As they were led away, my mother's voice carried back to me. "You're making a mistake, Quinn. You need us. You'll see." Mr. Jameson appeared at my side, concern etched on his face. "Are you all right?" I looked at the growing crowd, at my grandparents' worried faces, at the paintings that told the story of my abandonment and recovery. "Actually," I said, a strange calm settling over me, "I think I finally am." What I didn't know then was that this was just the beginning. My parents' unexpected appearance wasn't just about my gallery opening. It was about something much bigger. Something that would force me to confront not just my past, but theirs as well. The morning after the gallery opening, I sat at my grandparents' kitchen table, scrolling through social media. Videos of last night's confrontation had already gone viral. Rising artist dramatically confronts celebrity mother at exhibition opening. The headlines made me sick. "Don't torture yourself, dear," Grandmother Helen said, sliding a cup of coffee in front of me. "Those vultures will move on to something else soon enough." I closed my laptop, but not before catching a glimpse of my mother's latest Instagram post. A carefully staged photo of her looking wistfully at one of my paintings, captioned, "A mother's love never dies." #ProudMama, #artistic legacy. "She's already doing interviews," Grandfather Samuel said, walking in with the morning paper. "Local news is eating it up." The coffee turned bitter in my mouth. Of course she is. A memory surfaced, sharp and clear as glass, me at 16, crouched outside my parents' bedroom door, listening to them argue. "She's perfect for this, Ethan," my mother had insisted. Teen artist with a tragic backstory, daughter of former star Vanessa Harper? The networks will fight over it. "She's our daughter, Van, not a marketing opportunity." Don't be naive. This could put us back on top. "I've already talked to some producers about a reality show." That was the night before they left. Before they abandoned me with nothing but a note saying they needed to focus on their careers. Before my grandparents took me in and showed me what real family meant. My phone buzzed, a text from Mr. Jameson. "Turn on Channel 7 now." Grandfather Samuel grabbed the remote. There she was, my mother, perfectly composed in a morning show interview. "Always knew Quinn had inherited my creative spirit," she was saying, dabbing at dry eyes with a tissue. When I stepped back from the spotlight to nurture her talent. Stepped back. I stood up so quickly my chair toppled over. She disappeared for 5 years. And now, seeing her success, it validates every sacrifice we made as parents. The host leaned forward sympathetically. But Quinn seemed quite upset at the gallery opening. "There are videos circulating." "Oh, you know artists." Vanessa laughed airily. "So emotional, so dramatic." She gets that from me too. But family is family. In fact, we're planning a very special collaboration. I grabbed my phone, fingers shaking as I dialed the station's number. To my surprise, they put me through immediately live. "We have Quinn Harper herself on the line," the host announced. "Quinn, your mother was just telling us about your upcoming collaboration?" I took a deep breath, feeling my grandparents' supportive presence behind me. "There is no collaboration. My mother abandoned me 5 years ago. She's lying to you, just like she's been lying to everyone." Dead silence in the studio. Then my mother's voice, honey sweet. "Quinny, sweetheart, I know you're hurt, but don't sweetheart me. You left me. You and Dad walked out without even saying goodbye. The only reason you're here now is because you smell money and fame." "That's not true." "Ethan, tell her." She looked around frantically. "Where's Ethan?" That's when I noticed it too. My father hadn't been in any of the interviews. Wasn't beside her now. Something felt off about that. The host was trying to regain control of the situation, but I wasn't finished. "You want to talk about family? My real family is right here. My grandparents who picked up the pieces when you shattered them. They're the ones who deserve credit for any success I have. I hung up before they could respond, my hands trembling. The studio erupted into chaos on screen. "Well," Grandfather Samuel said quietly, "that was quite something." My phone started buzzing with notifications. Among them was a text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. Dad." Attached was a photo, documents I'd never seen before, with my mother's signature at the bottom. The date caught my eye, 5 years ago, the day before they left. Whatever game my mother was playing, there was more to this story than I knew. And maybe my father was finally ready to tell me the truth. I met my father at a small coffee shop across town, far from anywhere my mother might show up. He looked older than at the gallery, hunched over his cup like it was keeping him upright. The documents he'd texted about were spread on the table between us. "Your mother signed away her parental rights," he said without preamble. 5 years ago, right before we left." I stared at the papers, my coffee going cold. "What?" "There was a reality show deal. They wanted to feature you, the talented teenage artist, daughter of a former star. But you had to be." He swallowed hard. "You had to be under her complete control. No joint custody, no interference from me. And you just let her?" I fought it. "That's why we really left, not because of careers, but because I threatened to expose the whole thing. He pulled out another document, hands shaking. "She had dirt on me. Things that would have ruined any chance I had of custody." The bell above the door chimed. I glanced up to see Mr. Jameson walking in, stopping short when he saw us. Something flickered across my father's face, recognition, then fear. "Marcus," my father said quietly. "I didn't expect." "Ethan." Mr. Jameson's voice was ice. "Still hiding from your mistakes?" I looked between them, confusion mounting. "You two know each other?" "Your father and I worked together," Mr. Jameson said, not taking his eyes off Dad. "Until he sold out our entire gallery to fund your mother's comeback attempt." The world tilted sideways. "What?" "It wasn't like that," Dad protested. "The gallery was failing anyway. Because you were embezzling." Mr. Jameson's hands clenched into fists. "Artists lost their life's work. People lost their jobs. And you just disappeared." I felt sick. "Is that what Mom had on you? Is that why you left?" Dad's silence was answer enough. "That's why you took me under your wing," I said to Mr. Jameson. "You knew who I was all along." "I knew," he admitted, "but I also saw genuine talent. I thought maybe." He shook his head. "Maybe helping you would make up for failing to stop your father." My phone buzzed, a news alert. My mother was holding another press conference. The headline made my blood freeze. "Vanessa Harper announces documentary. My Daughter's Keeper. The Truth Behind the Art." "She's really doing it," Dad whispered. "She's going to twist everything."
No.
I stood up, my chair scraping loudly. "She's not getting away with this. Neither of you are." I grabbed the documents, my hands steady despite the rage building inside me. "You know what's interesting about these papers, Dad? They're dated after you left, which means you didn't sign away your rights to protect me. You did it for money." "Quinn, please." "How much?" When he didn't answer, I slammed my hand on the table. "How much did she pay you to disappear?" "Enough to pay back what I stole," he whispered. "Enough to keep me out of prison." Mr. Jameson stepped forward. "Quinn, there's something else you should know. Your mother didn't just buy his silence about you. There were other children. Marcus don't. Other artist children. Your father helped her scout them, promising their parents fame and fortune. She used them all up and moved on. You weren't the first, Quinn. Just the last." The coffee shop had gone silent, other customers pretending not to listen. I thought about my paintings, about the empty chair, and all the pain it represented. But it wasn't just my story anymore. You know what? I pulled out my phone, opening my gallery contacts. "Mom wants to make a documentary? Let's give her one. But this time, we'll tell the real story." I looked at Mr. Jameson. "Can you help me find the others?" He nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Already have their numbers." My father reached for my arm. "Quinn, you don't understand what she's capable of." I pulled away.
No, Dad.
You don't understand what I'm capable of. This isn't about revenge anymore. It's about justice. As I walked out, I could feel both men watching me. One who tried to protect me by teaching me art, and one who'd sold me out to protect himself. Both had shaped who I'd become. And now I was going to use everything they'd taught me to bring the truth to light. The first victim I met was named Sarah. She sat across from me in my studio, fingers tracing the rim of her coffee cup, looking exactly like the child in the photograph Mr. Jameson had shown me. Except she wasn't 12 anymore, and her eyes weren't filled with stars. "Your mother promised me a singing career," she said quietly. "Said I had raw talent, just needed the right guidance. My parents spent their life savings on her exclusive mentorship program." I nodded, my paintbrush moving across the canvas between us. "How long?" 2 years. Then she told my parents I wasn't marketable enough. Too plain. Sarah's laugh was hollow. "I haven't sung a note since." There were others. 6 in total, each with similar stories. My mother had built her post-fame career on broken dreams and empty bank accounts. And my father had helped her do it. My phone buzzed, another message from Dad. I'd gotten dozens since our coffee shop confrontation, each one more desperate than the last. I ignored it, just like all the others. "Quinn." My grandmother's voice carried up the stairs. "You have a visitor." I expected another of my mother's victims. Instead, a sharply dressed woman stood in our living room, a leather briefcase in hand. "I represent Vanessa Harper's legal team," she said, not waiting for introductions. "We understand you're gathering stories about our client. We'd like to discuss terms." My grandfather stepped forward. "Terms?" "A settlement. Very generous. In exchange for signing an NDA." She pulled out a document. "Mrs. Harper is willing to get out." The words came out before I could stop them. The lawyer blinked. "Miss Harper, I don't think you understand. This offer is proof I'm getting close to something she's afraid of." I moved to the door, holding it open. "Tell my mother she can keep her money. I'm not interested in being silenced." After she left, my grandmother touched my arm. "Are you sure about this, dear? These people, they have resources." "So, do I." I showed her my phone, dozens of messages from other victims who'd seen my social media posts. "And I have the truth." My studio phone rang, the gallery. "Quinn, there's someone here asking about your work. Says she's a producer." "I'll be right there." I grabbed my keys, but my grandfather stopped me. "Wait." He disappeared into his study, returning with a worn leather journal. "I've been saving this. It's your father's old diary. Found it after they left." He hesitated. "There are things in here about your mother, about what really happened to the gallery money." Before I could respond, my phone chimed with a news alert. My mother's face filled the screen, tears streaming perfectly down her cheeks as she addressed a crowd of reporters. "My daughter is being manipulated by people who want to destroy our family," she sobbed. "These horrible accusations. I only ever wanted to help those children achieve their dreams." The camera panned to show my father standing beside her, head bowed. My stomach churned as he stepped up to the microphone. "Quinn," he said, voice breaking, "please stop this. Your mother. We both made mistakes, but she's still your mother. These stories you're collecting, you don't understand the damage they could do." I looked down at his journal in my hands, then back at his pleading face on the screen. "No, Dad. You don't understand the damage that's already been done." My phone buzzed again. "Mr. Jameson, turn on channel 4. Now." Another news station, another story. But this time, it wasn't my mother crying crocodile tears. It was Sarah, standing tall before the cameras, telling her story. Behind her stood 3 more of my mother's victims. "We won't be silent anymore," Sarah said, her voice strong and clear. "And we're not alone." I opened my father's journal, my hands steady despite the weight of what I might find inside. The first page was dated 5 years ago, the day before they left. "Vanessa says this is the only way," he'd written. "But Quinn deserves to know the truth about what happened to Maria." I didn't recognize the name, but something about it made my blood run cold. Whoever Maria was, she might be the key to understanding why my parents really abandoned me. And why my mother was so desperate to keep me quiet now. I spent 3 days reading my father's journal, piecing together a story that made my blood run cold. Maria wasn't just another victim of my mother's schemes. She was there first. A talented young pianist who died by suicide after my mother destroyed her family financially and emotionally. The gallery's collapse wasn't just about money. It was about hiding evidence. I sat in my studio, surrounded by newspaper clippings Mr. Jameson had helped me gather. Maria's obituary was small, tucked away on page 6. No mention of my parents, though they'd been her mentors for 2 years. My phone lit up, a text from Sarah. "Your mother's lawyers are pressuring my parents. They're scared, Quinn." Before I could respond, my grandmother called up the stairs. "Quinn, your father's here." I found him in the kitchen, looking worse than ever. The smell of alcohol clung to him like cologne. "You need to stop," he said without preamble. "Your mother."
"She's not well."
The pressure of all this. Maria Delgado. His face went white at the name. "You wrote about her in your journal."
"How old was she, Dad?"
16. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly. You and Mom pushed her until she broke. Then you covered it up and moved on to the next victim." My voice stayed steady, though my hands shook. "How many others were there before me?" "We never meant." He stopped, swallowing hard. "Your mother was desperate. After her show was canceled, we were drowning in debt. Maria's parents were wealthy, influential. So you targeted their daughter." The pieces clicked into place. But something went wrong. Maria threatened to expose everything. "Your mother?" She leaked photos, started rumors. Said Maria was unstable, attention-seeking. He couldn't meet my eyes. When we heard about what happened, your mother said we had to leave town. Start fresh. With me as your next project. The kitchen door opened. My grandmother stood there, face pale. "Quinn, you need to see this." On the living room TV, my mother was giving another interview. But something was different. Her perfect mask had slipped, revealing something desperate and dangerous in her eyes. "My daughter thinks she knows the truth," she was saying. "But she's about to learn that some stories are better left untold. For everyone's safety." The interviewer leaned forward. "Are you threatening your daughter, Mrs. Harper?" "I'm protecting her. Just like I've always protected her." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Quinn, darling, if you're watching, remember Maria. Remember what happens to people who push too hard for answers." My father grabbed the remote, shutting off the TV. "Now you see why you need to stop?"
"No."
I pulled out my phone, showing him the group chat with Sarah and the others. "Now I see why we need to finish this." "Quinn, please. You can help us tell the truth, Dad. Or you can keep enabling her. Your choice." He reached for me, but I stepped back. In that moment, I saw him clearly, not as my father, but as a man who'd chosen the easier path so many times it had become a habit. "I'll be at the gallery tomorrow night," I said. "I'm unveiling a new series. The Lost Ones, portraits of everyone Mom destroyed, including Maria." I met his eyes. "You should come. See what your silence cost. She'll try to stop you. I'm counting on it." After he left, my grandmother touched my shoulder. "Are you sure about this? Your mother?" That wasn't just a threat. She looked desperate. I finished. "Good. Desperate people make mistakes." My phone buzzed again. "Mr. Jameson, Maria's parents want to meet. They've kept everything. Letters, contracts, photos, even recordings." I looked at my latest painting, Maria's face, pieced together from old photographs, her eyes holding all the dreams my mother had crushed. "I'm not running away," I texted back. "Not like they did." Tomorrow night, one way or another, the truth about Vanessa Harper would come out. And this time, no amount of tears or threats could stop it. Unless, of course, my mother had one last devastating secret to reveal. The gallery hummed with nervous energy as I stood before Maria's portrait. Her parents had arrived early, clutching a manila envelope full of evidence. They looked smaller than I'd imagined, worn down by years of grief and silence. She would have been 26 this year, Mrs. Delgado whispered, touching the canvas. The doors burst open. My mother swept in, flanked by lawyers and camera crews. She'd timed it perfectly, just as the main crowd was arriving. "Quinn, darling," she approached with open arms, playing to the cameras. "What a powerful piece. You've captured her spirit beautifully. Don't." My voice shook. "Don't pretend you care about Maria." "Of course I care." She turned to the cameras. Maria was like a daughter to me. Her tragic struggle with mental illness. "Lies." Mrs. Delgado stepped forward. "You destroyed our daughter." Security moved toward the commotion, but my mother raised her hand. "It's fine. Poor woman. Maria's death affected her deeply. She's never accepted the truth." That's when I saw my father slip in through the side door, looking haunted. He carried something, a small recorder. "The truth?" I gestured to the wall of portraits. "Like the truth about Sarah? About all of them?" "Quinn." My mother's voice dropped, though her smile remained. "Think carefully about what you're doing. Some truths are better left in the dark." Mr. Jameson emerged from the crowd. "Like the truth about the gallery money? About how you and Ethan—" "Enough." For a split second, her mask slipped. "Quinn, you have 5 minutes to shut this down or what?" I pressed play on my phone. Maria's voice filled the gallery, a recording from the Delgado's evidence. Her tearful voice describing the manipulation, the threats, the blackmail. My mother's face went white. "Turn that off. Make me." She lunged for my phone, but I stepped back. In her desperation to grab it, she knocked over an easel. The crash silenced the room. "You ungrateful little." She caught herself, aware of the cameras. "I gave you everything. Everything. And this is how you repay me. You gave me nothing." I helped Mrs. Delgado up from where she'd been pushed. "You took. That's all you've ever done. I protected you." She was unraveling now, her carefully constructed facade cracking. "You want to know the truth? Fine. Tell them, Ethan. Tell them what really happened to the gallery money." My father stepped forward, recorder in hand.
"No, Vanessa."
"No more lies." He pressed play. My mother's voice filled the room. "The girl's becoming a problem. If Maria talks, we lose everything. Better to discredit her now, while we still can." The gallery erupted into chaos. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Through it all, my mother stood frozen, staring at my father with pure hatred. "You recorded me?" Her voice was deadly quiet. "I recorded everything."
He looked at me.
"I'm sorry, Quinn. I should have done this years ago." My mother's laugh was chilling. "You think this changes anything? You're just as guilty as I am. And Quinn." She pulled out her phone. "Remember that contract you signed last year? The one giving you rights to your story." My blood ran cold. In the aftermath of the first gallery showing, she'd convinced me to sign something. I'd been so overwhelmed, I barely read it. "You don't own just your story anymore, darling." Her smile was victorious. "You own nothing. Check your accounts." I pulled out my phone with trembling hands. My accounts were empty. My recent sales, my savings, all gone. A mother must protect her investments. She turned to the cameras. "My daughter is clearly unstable, just like poor Maria. She needs help, not an audience." Security was moving in again, but this time they were coming for me. "Wait," I started, but my voice was lost in the chaos. My mother's words carried over the noise. "I'm sorry, everyone, but this exhibition is canceled. My daughter will be taking some time to focus on her health." As they led me toward the exit, I caught a glimpse of Maria's portrait. In the harsh gallery lights, her eyes seemed to follow me, filled with a warning I was too late to heed. I'd thought I was exposing the truth. Instead, I'd walked right into my mother's trap. 3 days after the gallery disaster, I sat in my emptied studio, surrounded by blank walls where my paintings had hung. My mother had moved quickly, using her legal team to seize everything. The media painted me as unstable, following her carefully crafted narrative. The door creaked open. "Quinn." My father's voice hesitant. "We need to talk."
About what?
"How you waited until she destroyed everything before showing that recording." He stepped inside, looking more sober than I'd seen him in years. "There's something you don't know. About Maria, and about your mother." Before he could continue, my phone buzzed. "Mr. Jameson. Turn on the news."
Now.
My mother's face filled the screen, but something was wrong. Her perfect mask had cracked completely. She was outside the police station, reporters swarming. "Mrs. Harper, what's your response to the leaked emails?" No comment. She tried to push through them. "Is it true you fabricated evidence against Maria Delgado? Did you knowingly commit fraud?" My father's hand tightened on his phone.
He sent everything?
"All the emails, the recordings, the financial records. Everything." "You what?" "Your mother." He swallowed hard. "She didn't just drive Maria to suicide. She orchestrated it. Created fake messages, planted evidence. Made it look like Maria was unstable." The studio door burst open. My mother stood there, mascara streaked down her face. "You treacherous bastard. It's over, Van." My father stepped between us. "No more lies." "Over?" She laughed, high and brittle. "Nothing's over. Quinn signed everything over to me. Her work, her rights, her story." Actually, Mr. Jameson appeared behind her. She didn't. He held up a document. "The contract Quinn signed? It required a witness. I was there that day. That's not my signature." My mother's face went pale. "Of course it is. You." "I'm left-handed, Vanessa. That signature was written by a right-handed person." He smiled grimly. "Amateur mistake." She lunged for the paper, but my father caught her arm. "Enough. Let go of me." She struggled. "Quinn, baby, you can't let them do this. Everything I did for us. For your future." "My future?" I gestured to the empty studio. "You mean your future. Just like with Maria and Sarah and all the others. It was never about us. It was always about you. You ungrateful little." She broke free, grabbing a palette knife from my workbench. "I made you. I can unmake you." Everything happened at once. My father moved to stop her. Mr. Jameson shouted.
And I
stayed perfectly still, meeting her wild eyes. "Do it," I said quietly. "Show everyone exactly who you are." Her hand trembled. In that moment, I saw something I'd never seen before: fear. Not of consequences or exposure, but of irrelevance. Of being seen for what she truly was. The palette knife clattered to the floor. "Mrs. Harper?" A police officer appeared in the doorway. "We need you to come with us." As they led her away, she turned back one last time. "Quinn, I just wanted to be remembered." "I'll remember you, Mom. We all will. Just not the way you wanted." After she was gone, my father picked up the palette knife. "Quinn, I know I can never make up for." "Stop." I took the knife from him. "You finally chose the right side. That's something." Mr. Jameson cleared his throat. "The Delgados are waiting downstairs. With the press. They want to tell their story, all of it, but they want you there." I looked around my empty studio, then at the blank canvas on my easel. "Actually, I have a better idea." I picked up my brush. It was time to paint one last portrait, not of who my mother pretended to be, but of who she really was. A warning, a memorial, and maybe, somewhere beneath the pain and betrayal, a daughter's final attempt to understand the woman who gave her life, then tried to take it away. Sometimes the truest art comes from our deepest wounds. And I had enough material to last a lifetime. 1 year later, I stood in a different gallery, surrounded by a new collection of paintings. The Price of Fame had become my most successful exhibition yet, touring across the country. The centerpiece wasn't Maria's portrait anymore, it was my mother's. I'd painted her as I last saw her, mascara-streaked, desperate, holding that palette knife. But behind her, I'd added shadows of all the lives she'd touched: Maria, Sarah, the others. Their faces emerged from the darkness, watching. It's haunting, my father said quietly, appearing beside me. He looked healthier now, 6 months sober. Have you heard from her? Last week. I adjusted a frame slightly. She wrote from prison. Said she's finally ready to tell her story. The real one this time. And I told her someone already had. The exhibition had become more than art, it was a movement. Other victims of similar schemes had come forward, sharing their stories. Sarah was singing again, performing at small venues. The Delgados had started a foundation in Maria's name. My grandmother touched my shoulder. Your grandfather's waiting in the car. Ready for dinner? Almost. I walked to the back room, where a single painting hung away from the others. It showed a young girl at a kitchen table, drawing while an older couple watched with pride. Simple, peaceful,
Real.
That's my favorite, Mr. Jameson said, joining me. It shows where your true strength came from. I've been thinking about taking it down, I admitted. Maybe it's time to stop telling this story. Is that what you want, or what you think you should want? Before I could answer, a commotion erupted from the main gallery. A familiar voice, though weaker than I remembered. Please, I just want to see it. 5 minutes. My mother stood in the doorway, escorted by 2 guards. Her prison-issued clothes hung loose on her frame.
No make-up, no facade.
Your call, my father murmured. I nodded to the guards. They let her approach the centerpiece, keeping close watch. You captured me perfectly, she said, her voice cracking. The real me, the monster. Not a monster, I replied. Just someone who forgot how to love anything but applause. She turned to me, eyes brimming. I've been writing, in prison, about everything. The truth this time. She swallowed hard. Would you read it? Not for publicity or redemption. Just so you understand. I studied her face, really looked at it, perhaps for the first time. Behind the desperation, I saw something new. Something that might have been remorse. I'll think about it. She nodded, accepting this small mercy. As the guards led her away, she stopped at the family portrait in the back room. They gave you what I couldn't, she whispered. Thank you for showing me that. After she was gone, my father touched the frame of his own portrait, the one where he finally stood up to her. Some stories don't have clean endings, he said. No, I agreed. But they have true ones. My phone buzzed, a message from Sarah. Her first EP was releasing next month. She wanted me to design the cover art. Ready for dinner? My grandmother called again. I took one last look at my mother's portrait. Tomorrow, I'd start a new collection. Something different. Something about healing, maybe, or growth. But tonight, coming, Grandma. Tonight was for family, the real kind, built on love rather than ambition. As we drove home, I thought about the blank canvases waiting in my studio. They didn't feel like accusations anymore or weapons. They felt like possibilities. My mother's manuscript would arrive next week. I hadn't decided if I'd read it. Some truths need time, and some wounds need distance before they can heal. But I had time now. And distance. And most importantly, I had a voice that was finally completely my own. The story wasn't over. It never really is when family's involved. But at least now I could paint it honestly, shadows and all.
It all started at what was supposed to be a regular family reunion. You know, the kind where everyone pretends to care about each other's lives while sneaking glances at their phones. I was sipping my 3rd cup of coffee, trying to stay awake through Aunt Mabel's endless tales of her cat's latest antics, when a stranger approached me. He was an older guy, probably in his 60s, with a face that looked like it had seen a lot of life. "Callan Rivers?" he asked, his voice a mix of curiosity and something I couldn't quite place. "Yeah, that's me," I replied, wondering if I should know him. He handed me a worn-out package, wrapped in brown paper. "This is from your father," he said, his eyes holding mine for a moment longer than comfortable. "He wanted you to have it." I was about to ask how he knew my dad, but he turned and disappeared into the crowd like a ghost. I stood there, package in hand, feeling the weight of 1,000 questions suddenly pressing down on me. "My name's Cal, by the way." I'm an urban planner, which sounds a lot more exciting than it actually is. Most days, I'm stuck in meetings about zoning laws and public transit routes. But today, I was holding a piece of my father's past, and I had no idea what to do with it. Curiosity got the better of me, and I found a quiet corner to open the package. Inside was a vintage camera, the kind you'd see in old movies, along with several undeveloped film rolls. Weird, right? My dad was never into photography, at least not as far as I knew. I turned the camera over in my hands, noticing a small note tucked into the case. The handwriting was unmistakable, my father's. It simply said, "Find the truth." Short, cryptic, and thoroughly unsettling. I spent the rest of the reunion in a daze, my mind miles away from the chatter around me. Even my brother Nolan's attempts to engage me in conversation barely registered. Nolan's the peacekeeper in the family, always trying to smooth things over. But today, even he couldn't pull me back from the edge of this mystery. Later that night, after the obligatory hugs and goodbyes, I found myself in my tiny apartment, staring at the camera. I decided to develop the film. It was a long shot, but I had to know what my father wanted me to see. A few days later, I picked up the developed photos. My heart pounded as I flipped through them, each image more confusing than the last. There was my father, looking younger and happier than I'd ever seen him, with an unfamiliar woman and a little girl. They looked like a family. But who were they? I couldn't shake the feeling that this was something big, something my mother, Lorraine, would never talk about. She's always been the keeper of secrets, the one who held our family together with an iron grip. But now I was holding a secret of my own, and it was tearing me apart. I needed answers, and I needed them fast. But I knew confronting my mother wouldn't be easy. Lorraine Rivers was not someone you questioned lightly. She had a way of dodging uncomfortable topics with the precision of a seasoned politician. As I sat there, staring at the photos spread out on my coffee table, I felt a mix of emotions: confusion, anticipation, maybe even a little excitement. This was a side of my father I'd never known, a side that had been hidden from me all these years. I had to find out the truth, no matter what it cost. The note had said as much, and I couldn't ignore it. But as I looked at the last photo, a chill ran down my spine. The little girl in the picture had eyes that looked eerily familiar. In that moment, I realized this was just the beginning. There were layers to this story, layers I wasn't sure I was ready to peel back. But I had no choice. Whatever my father had been hiding, whatever my mother refused to acknowledge, I was going to uncover it. I just hoped I was ready for what I might find. I sat at my kitchen table, the photos spread out in front of me like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle with no picture on the box. My mind kept circling back to that little girl with the familiar eyes. I had to talk to my mother, Lorraine, even though I knew it wouldn't be a walk in the park. That evening, I drove over to my childhood home. The place looked the same, comfortable and unassuming, like a Norman Rockwell painting. But now it felt like a stage set hiding a darker story. Lorraine was in the kitchen, humming to herself as she prepared dinner. The smell of her famous beef stew filled the air, but my appetite was nowhere to be found. "Mom, we need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked up, her eyes narrowing slightly. "About what, dear?" I placed the photos on the table, watching her face for any sign of recognition or surprise. Instead, she just stared at them, her expression unreadable. "Who are they?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Lorraine sighed, a sound heavy with years of unspoken words. "Cal, some things are better left in the past." "Not for me," I replied, a little sharper than I intended. "I need to know." She pushed the photos aside, her fingers trembling slightly. "Your father. He had his reasons. It was a different time." "That's not an answer," I said, frustration creeping into my voice. Nolan walked in just then, his timing impeccable as always. "What's going on?" he asked, glancing between us. "Cal's digging up old ghosts," Lorraine said, her tone dismissive. Nolan looked at me, a silent plea in his eyes. "Maybe we should just let it go, Cal." "Let it go?" I echoed, incredulous. There's a whole side of Dad's life we never knew about. How can you be okay with that? Nolan hesitated, his loyalty to our mother evident. I just think some things don't need to be dragged out into the light. I shook my head, feeling the gap between us widen. I can't pretend this doesn't matter. Lorraine stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. Cal, I love you, but this is not something I can discuss. Please just trust me. Her words hung in the air, a plea wrapped in a command. But I couldn't let it go. Not now, not after everything I'd seen. I nodded, more out of respect than agreement, and left the house, the weight of unsaid words pressing down on me. Back in my car, I gripped the steering wheel, trying to process what had just happened. Lorraine's refusal to talk only fueled my determination. There was more to this story, and I was going to find out what. The next day, I called Tessa, my best friend and the one person who could help me make sense of this mess. We met at our usual spot, a cozy little cafe with the best cinnamon rolls in town. So, what's got you all twisted up? Tessa asked, her eyes full of concern. I handed her the photos, watching as she flipped through them. My dad had a whole other life, I said, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. Tessa looked up, her expression a mix of sympathy and intrigue. Wow, Cal. This is a lot. Tell me about it, I said, leaning back in my chair. And Lorraine's not talking. Maybe you need to look at this from a different angle, Tessa suggested, always the problem solver. Have you thought about finding that little girl? She could have answers. I nodded, the thought already forming in my mind. I think she might be my half-sister. Tessa raised an eyebrow, clearly taken aback. That's huge. Are you ready for that? Not really, I admitted. But I don't have much of a choice. As we talked, a new plan started to take shape. I needed to find Ivy Monroe, the girl in the photos, and see what she knew. It was a long shot, but it was the only lead I had. Later, as I sat in my car, I felt the weight of the situation pressing down on me. Finding Ivy could open a whole new can of worms, but it was a risk I had to take. The truth was out there, tangled up in my father's past, and I was determined to unravel it, no matter where it led. With a deep breath, I started the engine, feeling the road ahead stretch out like a path to the unknown. I had no idea what I would find, but I knew one thing for sure: there was no turning back now. I found myself standing outside Jasper Hale's modest bungalow, my heart pounding against my ribs like a warning drum. Jasper was my father's old friend, and if anyone could shed light on this mess, it was him. I knocked, the sound echoing in the quiet neighborhood. The door creaked open, revealing Jasper's familiar face, weathered by time and stories untold. He looked at me with a mix of surprise and resignation. "Callan," he said, stepping aside to let me in. Inside, the walls were lined with photographs and newspaper clippings, a testament to a life spent chasing stories. I wondered how many of those stories were as tangled as mine. "I need to know about my father," I began, skipping the small talk. "Who was the woman in the photos?" Jasper sighed, a deep, weary sound. "I hoped you wouldn't have to dig this up, but I suppose you deserve the truth." He motioned for me to sit, and I did, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on me. "Your father and Ivy's mother, they were close," he said, choosing his words carefully. "She was a big part of his life." I nodded, urging him to continue. "And Ivy?" Jasper hesitated, his gaze drifting to a photo on the wall. "Ivy is your half-sister, Cal. Your father loved her mother, but circumstances kept them apart." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I had suspected as much, but hearing it aloud made it real. I tried to process the emotions swirling inside me: betrayal, anger, and a deep, gnawing sadness. "Why didn't Lorraine ever tell us?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Your mother had her reasons," Jasper replied, not unkindly. "She wanted to protect you and Nolan from the fallout." I stood up, unable to sit still any longer. "Protect us from what?" "The truth." Jasper didn't answer, and I realized it wasn't his place to justify my mother's choices. I thanked him and left, the sound of the door closing behind me echoing in my ears. As I drove away, I felt the weight of my father's secrets pressing down on me. I needed to find Ivy to hear her side of the story. But as I reached for my phone to search for her contact information, a thought stopped me cold. What if she didn't want to be found? What if she resented my family as much as I was beginning to resent the lies? I shook off the doubt and dialed the number I'd found online, my heart racing with each ring. Finally, a voice answered, cautious and guarded. "Hello? Ivy Monroe?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "This is Callan Rivers. I think we need to talk." There was a pause, long enough for me to wonder if she'd hang up. "I've been expecting your call," she said finally, her tone unreadable. "Meet me at the coffee shop on Main Street tomorrow." The line went dead, and I sat there, the silence in my car suddenly deafening. Ivy was expecting me. That could mean anything, and none of it was comforting. The next day, I walked into the coffee shop, scanning the room for Ivy. She was sitting in a corner, her eyes fixed on the window. She looked up as I approached, her expression a mix of curiosity and wariness. "Callan," she said, not quite a question, but not a statement either. "Ivy," I replied, taking a seat across from her. The silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken words. "So, you're my brother," she said, her voice carrying a hint of disbelief. "Half-brother, apparently," I corrected, trying to keep things light, though the weight of the truth was anything but. Ivy studied me, her gaze piercing. "What do you want, Callan?" "I want to know the truth," I said simply. "About our father, about us." She nodded, a small, almost imperceptible gesture. "I want that too." We talked for what felt like hours, peeling back layers of our shared history. Ivy told me about her mother, about the life she'd lived in the shadow of our father's choices. As I listened, I realized that we were both victims of a story we hadn't written. When we finally parted ways, I felt a strange sense of relief. Ivy wasn't a threat. She was a piece of the puzzle I'd been missing, a link to a past that was slowly coming into focus. But as I walked back to my car, the weight of what lay ahead settled over me. Lorraine's secrets were unraveling, and with them, the fragile piece of our family. I knew the road ahead would be rocky, but I also knew I couldn't turn back. The truth was out there, and I was determined to find it, no matter the cost. I was sitting in my apartment, staring at the photos again, when my phone buzzed with a message from Tessa. "Need to talk." "The meet at the park," it read. I grabbed my jacket, eager for a distraction from the storm brewing in my head. Park was quiet this time of day, and I found Tessa on our usual bench, her expression serious. "What's up?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light. She handed me a folded piece of paper. "I did some digging. This might help." I unfolded it, revealing an old newspaper clipping. The headline read, "Local woman's sudden death leaves community in shock." Beneath it was a photo of Ivy's mother. My heart sank as I skimmed the article, detailing her unexpected passing years ago. "What does this mean?" I asked, feeling a chill run down my spine. Tessa looked at me, her eyes searching mine. "I think it means there's more to this story than we thought. Maybe Ivy's mother didn't just fade away from your father's life. Maybe something else happened." I nodded, my mind racing. This new information changed everything. If Ivy's mother's death wasn't as straightforward as it seemed, then my father's involvement could be more complicated than I'd imagined. Back at home, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing a crucial piece of the puzzle. I needed to talk to Lorraine again, but this time I was going to push harder for answers. The next day, I found myself back at my childhood home, the familiar surroundings now tinged with a sense of betrayal. Lorraine was in the living room, flipping through an old photo album. "Mom, we need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked up, her eyes wary. "About what, Callan?" I handed her the newspaper clipping, watching her reaction closely. Her face paled, and she set the paper down with trembling hands. "Where did you get this?" Tessa found it, I replied, not backing down. What aren't you telling me? Lorraine sighed, a sound filled with years of unspoken truths. Your father and Ivy's mother? They were in love, but it was complicated. Her death was unexpected, and it broke him. Was he involved? I asked, the question hanging in the air like a dark cloud. No, she said, her voice firm. But he blamed himself. He always thought he could have done something to prevent it. I watched her, searching for any hint of deception. But all I saw was a mother trying to protect her family. Why didn't you tell us? Because I wanted to shield you from the pain, Lorraine said, her voice cracking. I didn't want you to carry the burden of his choices. I nodded, understanding her motives but still feeling the sting of her secrecy. I need to know everything, Mom. I can't keep living in the dark. She nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. I'll tell you everything, Callan. Just promise me you'll be careful. There are things in the past best left buried. As I left, I felt a strange mix of relief and dread. I was finally getting answers, but the truth was more tangled than I'd imagined. Later, I met Ivy again, this time at a small diner on the edge of town. Place was nearly empty, giving us the privacy we needed. I found something, I said, sliding the newspaper clipping across the table. Ivy scanned it, her expression unreadable. I knew she died suddenly, but I never knew the details. Lorraine says our father blamed himself, I said, watching her closely. Do you think there's more to it? Ivy looked up, her eyes meeting mine. I don't know, but I think we need to find out. We sat in silence, the weight of our shared history pressing down on us. I realized then that I wasn't just seeking the truth for myself. I was doing it for Ivy too, and for the family we never knew we had. As we parted ways, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I was no longer just unraveling my father's past. I was piecing together a future where Ivy and I could find closure. But as I drove home, a new thought crept in. What if the truth was more dangerous than I'd anticipated? What if uncovering it put us all at risk? The stakes had never been higher, and I knew I had to tread carefully. Past was a powerful thing, and I was about to dive headfirst into its depths, hoping to emerge with the answers we all needed. The days following my last conversation with Lorraine were a blur of restless nights and unanswered questions. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a precipice, looking down into a chasm filled with my family's hidden truths. I needed to take the plunge, but I was terrified of what I might find at the bottom. I met up with Nolan at a local bar, hoping for some brotherly advice or at least a distraction. Place was dimly lit, filled with the low hum of conversations and clinking glasses. Nolan was already there, nursing a beer and staring into space. Hey, I said, sliding onto the stool next to him. Hey, he replied, glancing at me with a hint of concern. You look like you've been through the ringer. I shrugged, signaling the bartender for a drink. You could say that. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of everything unsaid hanging between us like a thick fog. Finally, Nolan spoke, his voice low and hesitant. So, what's going on with Ivy? I took a sip of my drink, feeling the burn of the alcohol steady my nerves. I met her. She's not what I expected. Nolan nodded, his expression thoughtful. And Lorraine? She's finally starting to open up, but there's still so much she's not telling me, I admitted, frustration creeping into my voice. Nolan sighed, running a hand through his hair. You know she's trying to protect us, right? Protect us from what, exactly? I shot back, the words sharper than I intended. The truth? Our own family. Nolan didn't answer, and I realized he was just as caught in this web as I was. We were both trying to navigate a maze with no clear exit. As we left the bar, I felt a strange mix of determination and dread. I needed to talk to Ivy again to see if she could help me piece together the fragments of our father's past. But as I reached for my phone, a message popped up from an unknown number. Stop digging. Some things are better left buried. My heart skipped a beat, a cold sweat breaking out on my skin. I showed the message to Nolan, who frowned, his brow furrowed with concern. What do you think it means? I don't know, I said, my voice barely a whisper. But it feels like a warning. The message only fueled my resolve. I couldn't back down now, not when I was so close to the truth. I arranged to meet Ivy again, this time at a quiet spot near the river where we wouldn't be overheard. When I arrived, Ivy was already there, her expression guarded. You got the message too, didn't you? She asked, skipping any pretense of small talk. I nodded, the memory of the words still fresh in my mind. Do you have any idea who it could be from? Ivy shook her head, her eyes scanning the horizon as if expecting someone to emerge from the shadows. No, but it means we're onto something. We spent the next hour piecing together everything we knew, trying to form a coherent picture from the scattered pieces of our father's life. As we talked, I realized how much we both needed answers, not just for ourselves but for the families we never knew we had. But just as we were starting to make progress, Ivy's phone buzzed with another message. She read it, her face going pale. It's my mother's old contact, she said, her voice trembling. Someone's using it to send these warnings. The revelation hit me like a punch to the gut. Our pursuit of the truth had stirred up something, or someone, intent on keeping the past hidden. I looked at Ivy, seeing the fear mirrored in her eyes, and knew we had to be careful. As we parted ways, I felt the weight of the decision looming over me. I could keep pushing, risk everything to uncover the truth, or I could step back, protect what little peace we had left. But deep down, I knew I couldn't walk away. The stakes were too high and the cost of ignorance too great. I drove home, the road blurring before me as I grappled with the enormity of what lay ahead. My perception of justice and revenge was shifting, the lines between them blurring as I delved deeper into my father's past. In seeking the truth, I was also seeking redemption, not just for him but for myself and the family we were trying to rebuild. The journey was far from over, and I had no idea what I would find at the end. But one thing was certain, I couldn't stop now. Not when the truth was so close, and the past was finally ready to reveal its secrets. The day of the family gathering arrived, and I felt like I was walking into a storm with no umbrella. Ivy had agreed to come, but the tension between us was palpable. My mind was a whirlpool of anxiety and dread, knowing that this confrontation could either tear us apart or finally bring us the closure we needed. As we arrived at Lorraine's house, Ivy's grip on her purse tightened. Are you sure about this? She asked, her voice barely masking her apprehension. No, I admitted, but we need to do this. The door opened, and Lorraine greeted us with a smile that quickly faded as she saw Ivy. Her eyes widened, and for a moment I saw a flicker of fear. Callan, what's going on? Ivy's here because she deserves to know the truth, I said, my voice steady despite the chaos inside me. Nolan appeared in the hallway, his expression one of confusion and concern. Cal, what's happening? I took a deep breath, the weight of the moment pressing down on me. Ivy is our sister, Nolan. Our father's daughter. The room fell silent, the air thick with unspoken emotions. Lorraine's face was a mask of shock, and Nolan looked like he'd been hit by a freight train. I didn't want it to come out like this, Lorraine said, her voice trembling. I was trying to protect you. Protect us from what? I asked, my frustration boiling over. The truth. Ivy stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. I'm not here to cause trouble. I just want to understand where I come from. Lorraine's eyes softened, but the tension remained. I knew about you, Ivy. I knew about your mother. We were friends once, but things got complicated. Nolan looked between us, his loyalty torn. Mom, why didn't you tell us? I thought it was best to keep it buried, Lorraine said, tears glistening in her eyes. I didn't want you to suffer because of your father's mistakes. The room felt like it was closing in on me, the walls pressing tighter with every word. I had brought Ivy here seeking answers, but all I found were more questions, more tangled threads in a web I couldn't unravel. Just as I was about to speak, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I glanced at the screen, my heart sinking as I read the message. You've gone too far. Stop now or face the consequences. I showed the message to Ivy, her face paling as she read it. Who's doing this? She whispered, fear creeping into her voice. I don't know, I admitted, feeling the ground shift beneath me. But we're not safe. The realization hit me like a tidal wave. Whoever was behind these threats wasn't going to stop until we backed down. But backing down wasn't an option, not anymore. Ivy and I left the house, leaving Lorraine and Nolan to grapple with the fallout. As we walked down the street, the weight of the world pressing on our shoulders, I felt like I was teetering on the edge of a cliff. We can't give up, Ivy said, her voice resolute despite everything. I know, I replied, though the words felt hollow. But I don't know what to do next. As we parted ways, I felt a sense of hopelessness settle over me. The truth was within reach, but the cost of uncovering it seemed higher than ever. My ideas of revenge and justice were crumbling under the weight of reality, and I was left questioning everything I thought I knew. Back home, I sat in the dark, the silence deafening. I was at my lowest point, the path ahead obscured by shadows and uncertainty. But somewhere in the depths of my despair, a flicker of determination sparked. I couldn't let fear dictate my actions. I had to keep pushing, keep fighting for the truth, no matter what it cost. The stakes had never been higher, and the risks were mounting. But I knew one thing for certain, I wasn't alone. Ivy and I were in this together, and together we would find a way to bring the past into the light, no matter how dark the journey became. The night of the confrontation felt charged with electricity, the air thick with anticipation and fear. I stood outside Lorraine's house, my heart pounding like a war drum. Ivy was beside me, her expression a mix of determination and apprehension. We were about to face the past head-on, and there was no turning back. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. Lorraine sat in the living room, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Nolan hovered nearby, his face a mask of conflict. The room was silent, the only sound the ticking of the old grandfather clock in the corner. I took a deep breath, stepping forward. Mom, we need to talk, I began, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. Lorraine looked up, her eyes meeting mine. Callan, please, let's not do this here. No, I said firmly. We've been running from this for too long. It's time to face it. Ivy stepped forward, her voice calm but resolute. I deserve to know the truth, Lorraine. About my mother, about our father. Lorraine's eyes flickered with a mix of emotions, fear, regret, and something else I couldn't quite place. I was trying to protect you all, she said, her voice breaking. By keeping secrets? I challenged, feeling the weight of years of deception pressing down on us. We deserve to know the truth, even if it's painful. Nolan stepped in, his tone conciliatory. Mom, we're not here to hurt you. We just want to understand. The silence stretched, heavy and oppressive, until Lorraine finally spoke. Your father loved Ivy's mother. They were planning to be together, but then she died and everything fell apart. Ivy's face was a mask of shock, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Why didn't you tell us? Because I was afraid, Lorraine admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Afraid of what it would do to our family. The room was silent again, the weight of Lorraine's words settling over us like a shroud. I felt a mix of anger and empathy, understanding her motives but still grappling with the consequences of her choices. Just as I was about to speak, the doorbell rang, its sound slicing through the tension like a knife. We all turned, confusion etched on our faces. Nolan opened the door, revealing Jasper Hale standing there, his expression grave. I think it's time we all had a talk, he said, stepping inside. Jasper's presence was unexpected but somehow fitting. He had been a part of this story from the beginning, and now he was here to help us find closure. I've been keeping something from you, Jasper said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. Your father didn't just love Ivy's mother. He was trying to protect her from someone. The room went still, the implications of Jasper's words sinking in. Who? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Jasper hesitated, his eyes meeting Lorraine's. Someone who didn't want their relationship to succeed. Someone who had a lot to lose if the truth came out. Lorraine's face turned pale, and for a moment I saw a flicker of fear in her eyes. "I didn't know," she said, her voice trembling. "I swear I didn't know." Truth hit me like a tidal wave. Our father's love for Ivy's mother had been a threat to someone who had gone to great lengths to keep them apart. The warnings we'd received, the threats, it all made sense now. Ivy looked at me, her eyes filled with a mix of anger and determination. "We need to find out who's behind this." I nodded, the path ahead suddenly clear. We had to keep digging, keep fighting for the truth, no matter what it cost. As we stood there, united in our resolve, I felt a sense of closure beginning to form. We were finally facing the truth, and though the journey was far from over, we were no longer alone. Core themes of revenge and justice had brought us to this moment, forcing us to confront the past and find a way forward. And as we prepared to face whatever lay ahead, I knew that together we could overcome anything. The days following the confrontation were a whirlwind of emotions and revelations. Ivy and I spent hours piecing together the fragments of our father's past, the puzzle slowly forming a picture that, while not perfect, was clearer than before. We'd unearthed truths that had been buried for too long, and now it was time to see what we could build from the rubble. I found myself back at Lorraine's house, the familiar surroundings now tinged with a sense of hope. Lorraine sat at the kitchen table, her expression a mix of apprehension and resolve. Nolan was beside her, his presence a steadying force. "Thank you for coming," Lorraine said, her voice soft but steady. I nodded, taking a seat across from her. "We need to talk about where we go from here." Lorraine glanced at Nolan, then back at me. "I want to make things right for all of us." Ivy arrived a few moments later, her entrance quiet but significant. She took a seat beside me, her presence a reminder of the journey we'd shared. "I've found something," she said, placing an envelope on the table. The envelope was worn, the paper yellowed with age. I recognized the handwriting immediately. It was Ivy's mother's. Lorraine's eyes widened as she picked it up, her fingers trembling slightly. "Dear Lorraine," she read aloud, her voice catching on the words. "I hope this letter finds you well. I know things have been difficult, but I want you to know that I never intended to come between you and your family. I hope one day we can find a way to heal." The room was silent as Lorraine finished reading, the weight of the letter settling over us. It was a message of regret, but also of hope, a hope that we could find a way to move forward together. Lorraine looked up, tears in her eyes. I had no idea she felt this way. I've been holding on to so much anger, and it blinded me to what really mattered. Ivy reached across the table, placing her hand over Lorraine's. "We can't change the past, but we can choose how we move forward." In that moment, I saw the possibility of reconciliation, the chance to build something new from the ashes of the past. It wouldn't be easy, but it was a start. As we talked, the conversation turned to our father, his choices, and the legacy he'd left behind. We didn't have all the answers, but we had each other, and that was enough. Later, as I stood outside with Ivy, I felt a sense of closure beginning to take root. "Do you think we'll ever know the whole story?" she asked, her gaze thoughtful. "Maybe not," I admitted, "but we've come this far. That has to count for something." We stood in silence, the weight of the journey behind us and the promise of a new beginning ahead. The themes of revenge and justice had brought us to this point, forcing us to confront the past and find a way forward. And while some questions remained unanswered, the path ahead felt brighter. As Ivy and I parted ways, I felt a newfound sense of peace. I had come searching for the truth, and while the journey had been fraught with challenges, it had also brought me closer to my family. We were no longer defined by the secrets of the past, but by the bonds we were forging in the present. As I drove home, the road stretching out before me like a promise of new beginnings, I felt a sense of gratitude for the journey we'd undertaken. Past would always be a part of us, but it no longer held the power to dictate our future. And as I pulled into my driveway, I couldn't help but wonder what lay ahead. The story of our family was still being written, and while the path was uncertain, I knew we would face it together. united by the truths we'd uncovered and the hope of what was yet to come.
It was a typical Tuesday morning, the kind where everything felt routine and predictable. I had just finished my first cup of coffee and was about to head out to the dental clinic when I noticed a small package on the doorstep. It was wrapped in plain brown paper, no return address, just my name scrawled across the top in a hurried hand. The air felt suddenly tense, a chill creeping up my spine as I picked it up. "Hey, Lewis," I called out, trying to mask the unease in my voice. "Did you order something weird?" Lewis, my husband, appeared from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a dish towel. He gave me a quizzical look, shaking his head. "Not that I remember. What is it?" I shrugged, tearing at the paper. Inside was a broken baby doll, its limbs twisted grotesquely, and a note that made my heart drop. "You'll never be a real mother." For a moment, I just stood there, staring at the note, my mind racing. It felt like a punch to the gut, a cruel reminder of the pressures that had been quietly building in our lives. Pressures from Elaine, my mother-in-law, who never missed a chance to remind me that time was ticking. "Kelly, what is it?" Lewis asked, his voice laced with concern as he stepped closer. I handed him the note without a word. His eyes widened, and I saw a mix of confusion and anger cross his face. Who would do this? I shook my head, trying to push back the rising tide of emotions. "I have no idea," I lied, though a part of me had a sinking suspicion. Elaine had been relentless lately, her subtle digs and not-so-subtle hints that it was time for grandchildren. She had always been traditional, the kind of woman who believed in family above all else, even if it meant bulldozing over other people's boundaries. But this was a new low. "Maybe it's just some sick joke," Lewis suggested, though his tone lacked conviction. "We should call the police." I could see he was torn, wanting to protect me, but also not wanting to believe his mother could be involved in something so malicious. I wanted to believe that too, but the seed of doubt had been planted, and it was growing fast. "Let's not jump to conclusions," I said, forcing a calm I didn't feel. "I'll just throw it away. It's probably nothing." He nodded, but I could tell he wasn't convinced either. We both knew this wasn't just nothing. It was a threat, a reminder of the battle I was fighting, both with Elaine and within myself. Later that day, as I worked on a patient, my mind kept drifting back to the package. I tried to focus on the rhythmic scraping of the dental tools, the familiar routine that usually grounded me. But today it was just noise, a backdrop to the chaos swirling in my head. During lunch, I sat alone in the break room, picking at my salad. My phone buzzed with a text from Lewis. "We need to talk tonight." Simple, but it carried the weight of unspoken worries. I couldn't help but think back to the last family dinner. Elaine's pointed questions about when we were planning to settle down. Each question felt like a jab, a reminder that in her eyes, my career was just a placeholder until real life began. As the day wore on, I tried to shake off the feeling that something had shifted. The package was a catalyst, pushing me to confront the uncomfortable truth that Elaine's expectations were suffocating me. And the worst part, I wasn't sure if Lewis was ready to stand up to her, or if he even wanted to. When I got home, Lewis was waiting, the package gone but its presence still looming over us. "We need to figure this out, Callie," he said, his voice steady but his eyes full of uncertainty. I nodded, feeling the weight of the decision we had to make. "Yeah, we do." As we sat down to talk, I realized this was just the beginning. The package was more than just a cruel joke. It was a sign that things were about to get a lot more complicated. And as much as I wanted to run from it, I knew there was no escaping the storm that was coming. I just hoped we were strong enough to weather it together. That weekend, we found ourselves at Elaine's house for another one of her infamous family dinners. The air was thick with the smell of roasted chicken and something else, tension. I could feel it prickling at my skin as soon as we stepped through the door. Elaine greeted us with her usual smile, but there was a sharpness in her eyes that made my stomach churn. "Callie, Lewis," she chimed, pulling us into a quick embrace. "I'm so glad you could make it." "Wouldn't miss it," I replied, trying to keep my tone light. Lewis squeezed my hand, a silent reminder that we were in this together, even if it felt like we were walking into a lion's den. Dinner started off well enough, with the usual small talk and polite laughter. But it wasn't long before Elaine steered the conversation to her favorite topic, grandchildren. "You know, I ran into Mrs. Thompson the other day," Elaine began, her voice dripping with feigned innocence. "Her daughter just had twins. Can you imagine the joy?" Lewis shifted uncomfortably in his seat, and I could feel his silent plea for me to stay calm. "That's wonderful for them," I said, forcing a smile. Elaine's gaze locked onto mine, her her smile never wavering. It just makes me think about how lovely it would be to have little ones running around here. I felt the words like a slap, but I held my ground. We're focusing on other things right now, Elaine. Her eyes narrowed just a fraction. Of course, dear. But time waits for no one. Louis cleared his throat, trying to defuse the tension. Mom, we've talked about this. Elaine raised her hands in mock surrender. Oh, I'm just saying. You two would make such wonderful parents. The rest of the meal passed in a blur of forced conversation, my mind replaying her words over and over. Each one was like a needle, poking at the insecurities I tried so hard to bury. After dinner, as we helped clean up, Elaine cornered me in the kitchen. Callie, dear, she said, her voice low and conspiratorial. I just want what's best for you and Louis. I paused, wiping a plate dry with more force than necessary. I know you do, Elaine. She leaned in, her expression softening in a way that made me wary. I just worry sometimes. About you and your choices. There it was, the not-so-subtle dig. I met her gaze, refusing to back down. Our choices are just that, ours. Elaine's smile tightened. Of course. But I do hope you won't let your career come between you and family. I opened my mouth to respond, but Louis appeared, sensing the brewing storm. Everything okay in here? Perfect, I said, handing him the plate. Just finishing up. As we drove home, the silence between us was heavy. I could feel Louis's eyes on me, waiting for the inevitable. Callie, he began, his voice tentative. I know tonight was a lot. I nodded, staring out the window at the passing streetlights. It's always a lot with her. I'll talk to her, he promised, though we both knew it was a promise he'd made before. I don't want you to feel pressured. I sighed, feeling the weight of the evening settle over me. It's not just about pressure, Louis. It's about respect. He reached for my hand, his grip reassuring. I know, and I'm sorry. I want us to be okay. I squeezed his hand back, wishing it were that simple. Me too. The next morning, as I prepared for work, I found a message from an unknown number on my phone. Heard about the dinner. She'll never change. It was cryptic, unsettling. My thoughts immediately went to Elaine, but something told me this was different. A new player in a game I hadn't realized I was part of. I showed the message to Louis, who frowned, his mind working through the implications. Do you think it's her? I shook my head, unsure. I don't know, but it feels like someone else is involved. As I went through the motions at work, the message gnawed at me. It was a reminder that this wasn't just about family dinners and passive-aggressive comments. There was something deeper, a current of betrayal and secrets running beneath the surface. That night, I found myself on the porch, staring at the stars and wondering what was coming next. The cracks in our foundation were growing, and I wasn't sure how much longer we could hold everything together. But one thing was clear. I was done playing by Elaine's rules. It was time to find out who was really pulling the strings and why. I just hoped I was ready for what I might uncover. A few days after that unsettling message, I was at the clinic, trying to focus on work, when my phone buzzed with a text from a friend. It was a link to an online forum, one where people shared community gossip and complaints. My name was in the headline. I clicked the link, my heart pounding. The post was a long, rambling accusation about how I had supposedly mishandled a past pregnancy, leading to a miscarriage. The words were cruel, twisting the knife in a wound I had thought was long healed. The post was anonymous, but I had a sinking feeling about who was behind it. That night, I sat on the couch, staring at the screen, my hands shaking. Louis walked in, his face falling when he saw my expression. Callie, what's wrong? I handed him the phone, unable to speak. As he read, his face darkened, anger flashing in his eyes. This is insane. Who would do this? Who do you think? I said, my voice barely above a whisper. He sat down beside me, a heavy sigh escaping his lips. We need to talk to her. I nodded, though the thought of confronting Elaine filled me with dread. But I knew we couldn't ignore it any longer. It was time to face the storm head-on. The next day, we drove to Elaine's house. The tension in the car was palpable, each of us lost in our thoughts. When we arrived, Elaine greeted us with her usual warmth, but I could see the flicker of something else in her eyes. Come in, she said, ushering us into the living room. To what do I owe this surprise visit? Louis wasted no time, his voice firm. Mom, we need to talk about something serious. Elaine's smile faltered, but she gestured for us to sit. Of course, dear. What's on your mind? I took a deep breath, meeting her gaze. There's a rumor going around about me, about a miscarriage. It's vicious and false. Elaine blinked, her expression carefully neutral. Oh, Callie, I'm so sorry to hear that. People can be so cruel. I could feel the anger rising, a hot tide threatening to spill over. Elaine, this isn't just gossip. This is personal. And it feels like it's coming from someone who knows us. Her eyes widened, the picture of innocence. Are you suggesting I had something to do with it? Louis leaned forward, his voice steady but edged with steel. Mom, we just want to get to the bottom of this. It's tearing us apart. Elaine's gaze flickered between us, a moment of hesitation before she spoke. I would never do anything to hurt you, Louis. Or you, Callie. The denial hung in the air, heavy and unconvincing. I wanted to believe her, but the evidence was mounting, and my patience was wearing thin. As we left, my mind was a swirl of emotions. Elaine's words had been smooth, but there was something in the way she had avoided eye contact, the slight tremor in her voice. That left me unsettled. Later that evening, as I sat on the porch, trying to make sense of it all, Mr. Jennings, our neighbor, shuffled over. He had a knack for appearing at the most opportune times. Evening, Callie, he said, settling into the chair beside me. Heard about the trouble you're having. I nodded, grateful for his presence. It's been a rough few days. He looked thoughtful, his gaze fixed on the horizon. You know, sometimes the people we trust the most can surprise us. Not always in good ways. I glanced at him, the weight of his words sinking in. You think there's more to this? Mr. Jennings shrugged, a small smile playing on his lips. Just saying, keep your eyes open. You never know who might be watching your back. As he left, his words lingered, a whisper of doubt and possibility. I realized that Elaine might not be the only one with a stake in this twisted game. The unexpected twist was that I had allies I hadn't counted on, and enemies I hadn't seen coming. With this new perspective, the theme of justice and revenge took on a deeper meaning. It wasn't just about confronting Elaine anymore. It was about uncovering the truth, no matter where it led or who it implicated. I went to bed that night with a sense of determination. The path ahead was tangled with lies and betrayal, but I was ready to face it. Whatever it took, I would find the truth and reclaim my life from the shadows. The following week, life seemed to return to a semblance of normalcy, but the tension between Louis and me was palpable. We were both on edge, waiting for the next shoe to drop. It came during a quiet evening at home, when Louis received a phone call that changed everything. I watched as he answered, his face shifting from confusion to disbelief. What do you mean, she's here? He asked, his voice rising. He glanced at me, eyes wide with something between panic and anger. I'll be right there. He hung up, running a hand through his hair. Callie, it's Amber. She's at Mom's house. I blinked, trying to process this new twist. Amber? What is she doing there? I don't know, he replied, grabbing his keys. But we need to find out. The drive to Elaine's was silent, the air thick with unspoken questions. When we arrived, Elaine's door was ajar, and raised voices spilled out into the night. We stepped inside to find Amber standing in the living room, her expression a mix of determination and frustration. Elaine sat across from her, arms crossed, her face a mask of defiance. What's going on? Louis demanded, his voice cutting through the tension. Amber turned to us, relief washing over her features. I came to talk to Elaine. I thought she should know how her actions are affecting you too. Elaine's eyes flashed, but she remained silent, her lips pressed into a thin line. Amber, you didn't have to do this, I said, touched by her unexpected support. She shook her head, her gaze steady. I couldn't just stand by. Elaine, you need to stop. This isn't fair to them. Elaine's silence was deafening, the weight of her stubbornness filling the room. But there was something else in her eyes, a flicker of vulnerability that made me pause. Mom, Louis said, stepping forward, his voice softer now. We just want to understand why. Elaine's facade cracked, her voice trembling slightly. I only wanted what's best for you, Louis. I thought maybe Amber could help you see reason. The implication hung heavy in the air, the suggestion that Louis should reconsider his choices, his marriage. It was a betrayal wrapped in concern, a twist that cut deeper than any rumor. Amber's expression hardened. Elaine, I'm engaged. I moved on, and so has Louis. You need to accept that. The room fell silent, the truth settling over us like a shroud. Elaine's meddling had reached a breaking point, and there was no turning back. I took a deep breath, the anger and hurt giving way to a newfound clarity. Elaine, we love each other. That's not going to change. But we need you to respect our choices. Elaine looked at Louis, her eyes pleading. I don't want you to make a mistake. Louis's voice was firm, but gentle. The only mistake would be losing Callie because of all this. The power dynamics shifted in that moment. the strength of our resolve standing against Elaine's fear of losing control. It was a turning point, a chance to redefine our boundaries. Amber nodded, her presence a reminder of the support we had, even from unexpected places. You too deserve to be happy. Don't let anyone take that away. As we left Elaine's house, the tension between Louis and me began to ease, replaced by a sense of solidarity. We were in this together, and we would face whatever came next as a team. In the car, Louis reached for my hand, his grip reassuring. I'm sorry for everything, Callie. I should have stood up to her sooner. I squeezed his hand, feeling a renewed sense of hope. We both could have done things differently. But we're here now, and that's what matters. The drive home felt lighter, the weight of uncertainty lifting as we embraced the path forward. The theme of revenge had transformed into one of protection, not just for ourselves, but for the life we were building together. As we pulled into our driveway, I realized that this was more than just a fight against Elaine's interference. It was a chance to redefine what family meant to us, to carve out a space where love and respect could thrive. The journey ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, I felt ready to face it, knowing that whatever happened, we would face it together. The idea of adoption had been a lighthouse in the storm, a guiding hope that Louis and I clung to as we navigated the choppy waters of family drama. We had begun researching agencies, discussing what it would mean to bring a child into our lives on our own terms. It was a chance to redefine what family meant, away from Elaine's expectations and manipulations. But hope has a way of being tested. It was a quiet Saturday morning when the phone rang. I picked it up, expecting a telemarketer or a wrong number, but the voice on the other end was familiar, and not in a comforting way. Callie, it's Elaine. I tensed, bracing myself. What do you want, Elaine? She hesitated, a rare pause that usually preceded something unpleasant. I heard about the adoption plans. I just wanted to say, I don't think it's a good idea. I felt my temper flare, the frustration bubbling over. And why is that, Elaine? Her voice was cool, calculated. A child deserves a real family, not one that's incomplete. The words were a dagger, twisting in the wound. I took a deep breath, fighting to keep my voice steady. A real family is built on love and commitment, not on your outdated notions. Elaine's silence was a challenge, and I could almost hear the gears turning in her mind. Louis should reconsider, she finally said. Think about what's best for him. I hung up, my hand shaking. It was clear she wouldn't back down, not without a fight. And I was done playing by her rules. That evening, as Louis and I sat down to dinner, I recounted the conversation, my voice thick with emotion. She just won't stop, Louis. She wants to control everything. He listened, his brow furrowed in concern. We can't let her dictate our lives, Callie. We have to stand firm. I nodded, but the weight of the situation pressed heavily on me. But what if she finds a way to sabotage the adoption? What if she never accepts us? Louis reached across the table, taking my hand in his. Then we'll deal with it together. We can't let her fear control us. His words were a bomb, but the doubts lingered, gnawing at the edges of my resolve. I knew Elaine was capable of more than just words. She had already shown how far she was willing to go. The next day, as I was leaving for work, Mr. Jennings waved me over from his porch. Morning, Callie, he said, his eyes sharp and knowing. Heard you might be expanding the family. I smiled, though it felt fragile. We're considering adoption. He nodded, a thoughtful look on his face. Elaine's been talking, trying to stir the pot. I sighed, the frustration bubbling up again. I figured as much. But we're not backing down. Mr. Jennings leaned forward, his voice low. Just remember, Callie, sometimes the best revenge is living well. Don't let her steal your joy. His words stayed with me throughout the day, a reminder that Elaine's power was only as strong as we allowed it to be. But it was easier said than done when every move felt like it was being watched, judged. That evening, as I sat alone on the porch, a car pulled up. To my surprise, Amber stepped out, her expression determined. Callie, she said, sitting beside me. I heard what Elaine said. I just wanted to check on you. I smiled, grateful for her presence. Thanks, Amber. It's been challenging. She nodded, her gaze steady. Elaine's not the only one who can play the game. Sometimes you have to fight fire with fire. I raised an eyebrow, intrigued. What do you mean? Amber hesitated, then leaned closer. I might have some information that could help. Something Elaine wouldn't want getting out. It was a revelation, a twist that shifted the balance of power. I hadn't considered the possibility of having leverage against Elaine, but Amber's offer opened a door I hadn't dared to approach. As the evening wore on, we talked about possibilities, strategies, and what it would mean to take a stand. It was a turning point, a chance to reclaim control from Elaine's grasp. The theme of revenge had evolved once again, from passive endurance to active resistance. It was no longer about just surviving Elaine's interference, but about asserting our right to happiness and family on our terms. With Amber's help, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. The road ahead was still fraught with challenges, but I was ready to face them, armed with the knowledge that we weren't alone in this fight. Whatever happened next, we would meet it head-on together. The family gathering was set for Saturday. Elaine had insisted on hosting, as she often did, under the guise of mending fences. But I knew better. This was her stage, and she was the director, determined to control the narrative. Louis and I arrived early, the tension between us a silent undercurrent. We exchanged a glance, a mutual understanding that this could be the tipping point. We were armed with Amber's revelations, but the outcome was uncertain. Elaine welcomed us with her usual air of authority, her smile tight and her eyes appraising. "I'm glad you could make it," she said, her voice smooth but with an edge that set my nerves on edge. As the evening progressed, the room filled with family members, laughter, and the clinking of glasses. But beneath the surface, a storm brewed, waiting for the right moment to unleash. Dinner was a tense affair, conversations skirting around the elephant in the room. I could feel the weight of Elaine's gaze on me, a challenge unspoken but understood. Finally, as dessert was served, I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on me. "Elaine," I began, my voice steady but firm. "We need to talk about the rumors." The room fell silent, all eyes turning to us. Elaine's expression didn't falter, but I caught the flicker of something, fear perhaps, in her eyes. "I don't know what you're talking about, Callie." I held her gaze, refusing to back down. "You know exactly what I'm talking about. The lies about a miscarriage, the attempts to sabotage our adoption plans." A murmur rippled through the room, the tension crackling like static electricity. Louis placed a reassuring hand on my back, his support a solid presence. Elaine's mask slipped, her voice rising in defense. "I only wanted what's best for my son, for this family, and spreading lies is your idea of what's best." I countered, my anger flaring. "You can't control us, Elaine. We're not your puppets." The room was charged with a mix of shock and disbelief. Elaine's carefully constructed facade was crumbling, her grip on the family slipping. Louis stepped forward, his voice calm but resolute. "Mom, we love you, but this has to stop. Callie and I are building a life together, and we need you to respect that." Elaine's eyes filled with tears, her vulnerability exposed for the first time. "I just wanted to protect you, Louis." "Protect me from what?" he asked gently. "From happiness?" The silence that followed was heavy, the truth settling over us all. For a moment, it seemed like we had reached a turning point. But then Elaine's sister, always the opportunist, spoke up. "Maybe Elaine's right," she said, her voice dripping with false concern. "Maybe you should think twice about this adoption. It's a big step." The words were a gut punch, a reminder that Elaine wasn't alone in her campaign against us. The support I thought we had was crumbling, leaving us exposed and vulnerable. I felt the walls closing in, the weight of judgment and doubt pressing down on me. It was a moment of despair, the lowest point in this battle for autonomy and respect. But then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw Amber standing by the door, her expression one of determination and defiance. She stepped forward, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. "Callie and Louis deserve to be happy, and they deserve a family of their own," she said, her eyes locking onto Elaine's sister. "And anyone who can't see that is blind to what really matters." Her words were a lifeline, pulling me back from the brink of hopelessness. It was a reminder that we weren't alone, that there were allies willing to stand with us against the tide. The room shifted, the balance of power tilting in our favor. Elaine's sister fell silent, her attempt to undermine us thwarted. As the evening drew to a close, I felt a sense of resolve settle over me. The path ahead was still fraught with challenges, but we had faced the storm and emerged stronger for it. The theme of revenge had transformed once more, from a desire for retribution to a quest for justice and truth. It was no longer about defeating Elaine, but about reclaiming our lives and our future. As we left Elaine's house, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. The road ahead was uncertain, but I knew that with Louis and our newfound allies, we could face whatever came next together. The family gathering had been a turning point, but the real confrontation was yet to come. A week later, Elaine called another meeting at her house, claiming she wanted to discuss the future. I knew this was it, the moment where everything would come to a head. As Louis and I arrived, the tension was palpable. The family was already gathered, their expressions a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Elaine stood at the center, her posture commanding, but there was a vulnerability in her eyes that hadn't been there before. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice steady but lacking its usual authority. "I've called you here because there are things that need to be addressed." I exchanged a glance with Louis, his eyes reflecting my own uncertainty. We had come prepared, but the unpredictability of the situation kept us on edge. Elaine turned to us, her gaze direct and unyielding. "Callie, Louis, I've made mistakes. I see that now. But I can't just let things go without understanding why you're making such drastic decisions." The room was silent, the weight of her words hanging in the air. I felt the familiar surge of frustration, but I knew this was a chance to finally lay everything bare. "Elaine," I said, stepping forward, my voice clear and unwavering. "Our decisions are our own. We want a family, but it has to be on our terms, not yours." She flinched but held her ground. "I just don't want you to regret anything. Family is everything, and I thought Amber could help you see that." Amber, who had been standing quietly to the side, stepped forward, her expression resolute. "Elaine, I can't be a part of this. Louis and Callie have made their choice, and it's time you respected that." Elaine's eyes widened, the realization dawning that her last ally was slipping away. "Amber, No," Amber interrupted, her voice firm. "I won't be used as a pawn in this. I care about both of you, but this has to stop." The room was electric with tension, the air thick with the unspoken truths that had been simmering beneath the surface. Elaine's facade was crumbling, and in that moment, I saw not just the antagonist of my story, but a woman struggling against her own insecurities and fears. Louis took my hand, his grip steadying. "Mom, we love you, but this isn't about you. It's about us and the life we're building together." Elaine's shoulders slumped, the fight leaving her eyes. "I just wanted to protect you," she whispered, her voice breaking. I stepped closer, my resolve softening. "We know, but your protection felt like control. We need to make our own mistakes, find our own way." The silence that followed was heavy, but it was a silence filled with possibility, a chance for healing and understanding. Then, unexpectedly, Mr. Jennings cleared his throat, drawing the room's attention. "Elaine, sometimes letting go is the greatest act of love. You've raised a good son. Trust him." His words cut through the tension, a reminder that love sometimes meant stepping back, allowing others to forge their own paths. Elaine nodded slowly, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "I see that now. I'm sorry for everything." The apology hung in the air, a tentative bridge between past grievances and future reconciliation. It wasn't a perfect resolution, but it was a start. As the gathering broke up, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The confrontation had been cathartic, a chance to finally face the core themes of our journey: revenge, justice, and ultimately forgiveness. Elaine approached us, her expression tentative but sincere. "I hope you can forgive me. I still have a lot to learn." Louis smiled, his arm around my waist. "We all do, Mom." As we left, hand in hand, I realized that the path ahead was still uncertain, but it was one we would navigate together, with the support of those who truly mattered. The climax had brought us face to face with the heart of our struggle, and while the road to healing would be long, it was one we were ready to embark on, together. The adoption process was a whirlwind of paperwork and anticipation, a journey that tested our patience and resolve. But finally, the day arrived when we welcomed a beautiful little girl into our lives. Holding her in my arms for the first time, I felt a surge of love and completeness that made every struggle worthwhile. Louis and I stood in our living room, surrounded by friends and family who had supported us through the storm. Amber was there, her presence a reminder of unexpected allies and the strength of friendship. Even Elaine had come, standing quietly at the edge of the room, her expression a mix of pride and humility. As we celebrated, I caught Elaine's eye across the room. She approached slowly, her steps tentative. "Callie," she began, her voice soft. "Thank you for letting me be here." I nodded, the past months of tension and conflict simmering beneath the surface. "I'm glad you came." Elaine glanced at the baby in my arms, her eyes softening. "She's beautiful. You're both going to be amazing parents." There was a sincerity in her words that hadn't been there before, a vulnerability that hinted at change. I felt a flicker of hope that perhaps this could be a new beginning for all of us. Later, as the guests began to leave, Elaine lingered, her expression contemplative. "Callie, I want to give you something," she said, handing me an envelope. Inside was a letter, the paper worn and the ink slightly smudged. I glanced at Elaine, a question in my eyes. "It's my story," she explained, her voice tinged with emotion. "I thought it might help you understand why I was the way I was." I nodded, touched by the gesture. "Thank you, Elaine." That night, after everyone had left and our daughter was asleep, Louis and I sat together, reading Elaine's letter. It was a heartfelt account of her own struggles with infertility, the pressure she had faced, and the fear of losing her family. The letter was a revelation, a glimpse into the pain and insecurity that had driven Elaine's actions. It didn't excuse her behavior, but it offered a new perspective, a chance to understand and perhaps forgive. As I folded the letter, I felt a sense of closure, a resolution to the conflict that had once seemed insurmountable. Elaine's journey was her own, but it had intersected with ours in ways that had shaped us all. In the days that followed, I returned to my dental practice, rediscovering my passion and purpose. The challenges of the past had strengthened my resolve, and I embraced my role as a mother with newfound confidence. Elaine's relationship with us remained a work in progress, but we had set boundaries, prioritizing our family's peace and happiness. It was a delicate balance, but one we were committed to maintaining. One afternoon, as I watched our daughter play in the garden, I felt a sense of contentment and gratitude. The journey had been tumultuous, but it had led us to this moment, a testament to resilience and the power of love. As Louis joined me, wrapping his arm around my shoulders, I reflected on the themes that had defined our path: revenge, justice, and ultimately, forgiveness. Our story wasn't just about overcoming adversity, but about finding strength in vulnerability and the courage to forge our own path. The resolution was not without its complexities. Elaine's letter had left lingering questions about the nature of forgiveness and the possibility of rebuilding bridges. But I realized that some answers might never be clear-cut, and that was okay. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over our home, I felt a sense of peace. Our journey was ongoing, but we faced it together, armed with the lessons of the past and the promise of the future. In the end, it wasn't just about finding justice or exacting revenge, but about healing and embracing the messy, beautiful reality of family. And in that, I found a resolution that was both satisfying and profound.
You know how they say life can change in an instant? Well, that's exactly what happened to me. One minute, I was basking in the glow of a perfect proposal, and the next, I was being asked to consider a living arrangement that felt like a step back into the 1950s. Let me back up a bit. My name is Marin, and up until that moment, I thought I had it all figured out. I'm 34, an occupational therapist, and fiercely independent. I've always prided myself on being able to balance my career and my personal life. But then Ethan, my charming and sometimes frustratingly loyal fiancé, threw a curveball I didn't see coming. We were sitting in our favorite little cafe, the kind with mismatched chairs and the smell of fresh coffee that hits you the moment you walk in. Ethan was fiddling with his cappuccino cup, a sure sign he was about to drop something big. I could tell he was nervous, but I didn't expect what came next. "Marin," he started, his voice a little too casual, "I've been thinking maybe we should consider moving in with my mom after we get married." I almost choked on my scone. "Move in with Lillian?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Lillian, his mother, was a force of nature. A retired school principal with a penchant for control, she was the kind of person who could make a simple dinner feel like a board meeting. "Just for a while," Ethan continued, not meeting my eyes. "She's been lonely since Dad passed, and it would give us a chance to save up for a bigger place." I could feel my heart racing. This was not part of the plan. I had always imagined us building our life together, not living under the watchful eye of his mother. But I also knew how much family meant to Ethan. His sense of duty was one of the things I loved about him, but it was also something that could drive me up the wall. I took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. "Ethan, I get that you want to be there for your mom, but living with her? Don't you think that's a bit much?" He finally looked at me, his eyes pleading. "She's been through a lot, Marin. And it wouldn't be forever. Just until she's back on her feet." There it was, the conflict that had been simmering beneath the surface. Ethan's loyalty to his family versus my need for independence. I could feel the tension building, like a storm about to break. "Okay," I said slowly, "how about a compromise? We could find a place nearby. That way we're close enough to help but still have our own space." Ethan nodded, relief washing over his face. Yeah, that could work. I'll talk to her about it. Despite the uneasy truce, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Lillian wasn't the type to let go easily, and I had a sinking suspicion that moving nearby wouldn't be enough to keep her at bay. As we left the cafe, I noticed Ethan's phone buzzing on the table. It was a text from Lillian. I didn't mean to look, but the words jumped out at me. Make sure she understands what's at stake. I felt a chill run down my spine. What exactly did she mean by that? It was an unsettling thought, and one I couldn't ignore. Back at home, I tried to push the conversation with Ethan to the back of my mind, but it lingered like a shadow. I busied myself with work, hoping that diving into my patient's progress reports would distract me. But every time I glanced at the clock, I was reminded of the ticking time bomb that was our living arrangement. Later that night, as I lay in bed next to Ethan, I couldn't help but wonder what else Lillian might have up her sleeve. Was this just about loneliness, or was there something deeper at play? I had a feeling I was about to find out. And that's how it all began. A simple suggestion that spiraled into something much more complicated. I knew I had to keep my wits about me because in this family drama, nothing was as it seemed. As I drifted off to sleep, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the tip of the iceberg. The next few weeks felt like navigating a minefield. Finn and I found a small apartment close to Lillian's house, a compromise that seemed to appease everyone on the surface. But beneath the polite smiles and forced pleasantries, tension simmered. It started with Lillian's frequent visits. She had a knack for showing up unannounced, always with some excuse. I was just in the neighborhood, she'd say, holding a casserole dish like a peace offering. But there was always something else, an opinion on our furniture arrangement, a comment on my choice of career. Her words, though wrapped in sweetness, carried a sting. One evening, we had Lillian over for dinner. I was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables, when she wandered in, her eyes scanning the room like she was taking inventory. So, Marin, she began, her voice casual, are you still working those long hours? Must be tough balancing that with home life. I could feel the muscles in my jaw tighten. I manage, I replied, trying to keep my tone light. I love what I do, and Ethan's really supportive. Lillian raised an eyebrow, a small smile playing on her lips. Of course, but family is important too. Sometimes sacrifices have to be made. It was a dig, subtle but sharp. I turned back to the cutting board, focusing on the rhythm of the knife. Absolutely, but I think Ethan and I have found a good balance. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of small talk and forced laughter. Ethan seemed oblivious to the undercurrents, completely charmed by his mother's presence. I watched him, wondering if he noticed how his mother's eyes lingered on me, assessing, calculating. After Lillian left, I sank into the couch, exhaustion washing over me. Ethan joined me, his arm draping over my shoulders. That went well, didn't it? He asked, a hopeful note in his voice. Sure, I replied, keeping my voice neutral. Your mom's something else. He chuckled, missing the edge in my words. Yeah, she can be a bit much, but she means well. She's just worried about us. I nodded, not trusting myself to say more. I didn't want to start a fight, not when I was still trying to figure out how to navigate this new dynamic. But the next day, things took a turn. At work, I received a call from the pharmacy about a prescription I didn't remember refilling. Confused, I assured them it must have been a mistake. But as I hung up, unease settled in my stomach. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. That evening, I mentioned it to Ethan. Did you pick up a prescription for me? I asked, trying to sound casual. He looked puzzled. No, why? I shrugged, feigning nonchalance. Just got a weird call from the pharmacy. Probably nothing. But it didn't feel like nothing. Felt like a thread unraveling, one I needed to follow. A few days later, I found myself at Lillian's house, dropping off some groceries she'd requested. As I put the bags on her kitchen counter, a small stack of papers caught my eye. Among them, a note scribbled in Lillian's unmistakable handwriting. Refill Marin's prescription. My heart skipped a beat. Why would she have a note about my medication? I felt a chill creep up my spine, a sense of violation that made my skin crawl. I didn't confront her then, not yet. I needed more information, more proof. But as I left her house, I couldn't shake the feeling that Lillian's meddling went deeper than I'd realized. Back at home, I tried to act normal, but my mind was racing. I couldn't tell Ethan, not without evidence. He'd never believe his mother capable of something so underhanded. Instead, I called Tessa my best friend and confidant. As soon as she picked up, I blurted out everything. "Tess, I think Lillian's messing with my meds." "Are you serious?" she exclaimed, her voice a mix of disbelief and anger. "That's insane, Marin. You need to be careful." "I know," I said, my voice shaky. "But I don't know what to do. I feel like I'm losing control." Tessa was silent for a moment, then she spoke, her voice firm. "You need to find out what she's up to, and be ready for whatever comes next." As I hung up, I realized Tessa was right. This wasn't just about Lillian's fear of losing Ethan. It was about control, and I had a feeling things were about to get a lot more complicated. I had spent the better part of the week trying to piece together the puzzle Lillian had laid out, but every time I thought I had a handle on it, something else slipped through my fingers. The tension was palpable, like a storm about to break, and I could feel my patience wearing thin. One evening, after a particularly long day at work, I came home to find Lillian sitting in our living room. Her presence was like a cold draft, uninvited and unsettling. Ethan was in the kitchen, oblivious to the unease that her visits always brought. "Hello, Marin," Lillian said, her voice smooth as silk. "I hope you don't mind. I thought I'd surprise you both with dinner." I forced a smile, though my jaw felt tight. "Of course not, Lillian. It's always nice to have company." She nodded, her eyes glinting with something I couldn't quite place. "I was just telling Ethan how proud I am of him. He's been working so hard." I glanced at Ethan, who was busy stirring a pot on the stove. "He has," I agreed, trying to keep my voice neutral. Lillian leaned back in her chair, her gaze fixed on me. "And you, Marin? How's work treating you? It must be hard balancing everything." I shrugged, unwilling to give her more ammunition. "It's busy, but I manage." She tilted her head, a small smile playing on her lips. "You know, sometimes I wonder if you're taking on too much. It's important to focus on what truly matters." There it was again, that subtle jab. I could feel my pulse quicken, but I swallowed my retort. This wasn't the time or place for a confrontation, not with Ethan right there. As we sat down to dinner, I noticed Lillian's eyes flicking between Ethan and me, as if she were gauging the distance between us. I tried to ignore it, focusing instead on the food, but it was hard to shake the feeling that she was orchestrating something. Halfway through the meal, Lillian casually mentioned, "Oh, by the way, I spoke to Dr. Harris the other day. He mentioned your last checkup went well." I froze, my fork hovering midair. Dr. Harris was my doctor, but I hadn't told anyone about my recent visit. "How did that come up?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Lillian waved a hand dismissively. "Oh, you know how small towns are. Everyone knows everyone. He was just being friendly." I forced a laugh, though my mind was racing. How did she know about my checkup? And why was she talking to my doctor? Through dinner, as Lillian prepared to leave, she turned to me, her expression softening. "You know, Marin, I only want what's best for you both. Sometimes, sacrifices have to be made for the greater good." I nodded, though her words felt like a veiled threat. "I understand, Lillian. Thanks for dinner." Once she was gone, I turned to Ethan, who was clearing the table. "Did you know your mom was talking to Dr. Harris?" He shook his head, looking genuinely puzzled. "No, why?" I hesitated, unsure of how much to reveal. "It's just strange, that's all. I didn't think they knew each other." Ethan shrugged, dismissing it as small-town gossip. "She probably ran into him at the store or something. You know how she is." I nodded, though unease gnawed at me. I needed to get to the bottom of this, and soon. The next day, I decided to drop by Dr. Harris's office. As I sat in the waiting room, my mind spun with possibilities. Was Lillian meddling in my health? And if so, why? When Dr. Harris finally called me in, I wasted no time. Doctor, I know this might sound odd, but has Lillian Hawthorne been in contact with you about me? He looked surprised, then nodded slowly. She did mention you. Said she was worried about your stress levels and wanted to make sure you were taking care of yourself. I felt a chill run down my spine. Did she ask about my medications? Dr. Harris hesitated, then nodded again. She mentioned something about ensuring you were on the right track. I assumed she was just being a concerned family member. I thanked him, though my mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. Lillian was more deeply involved than I'd realized, and her interference wasn't just about Ethan. It was about control, and I was caught in her web. As I left the office, I knew I couldn't keep this from Ethan any longer. I needed to confront him to make him see what was happening. But as I walked home, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning, and that the storm was far from over. The air in our apartment was thick with unspoken words. I knew I couldn't avoid it any longer. The evidence was mounting, and Lillian's interference had crossed a line I couldn't ignore. I had to talk to Ethan. He was sitting at the dining table, absorbed in his laptop. I took a deep breath, steadying myself for the conversation that was about to unfold. Ethan, we need to talk, I said, my voice firmer than I felt. He looked up, a hint of concern in his eyes. What's up? I sat down across from him, trying to gather my thoughts. It's about your mom. I think she's been interfering with my health. Ethan's brow furrowed. What do you mean? I hesitated, choosing my words carefully. I found out she's been talking to my doctor, asking about my medications, and there have been some discrepancies in my prescriptions. He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. Marin, that sounds a bit extreme. Are you sure? I nodded, frustration bubbling beneath my calm exterior. I spoke to Dr. Harris. He confirmed it. She's been meddling, Ethan. Ethan sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. I'm sure she was just worried. Maybe she overstepped, but she wouldn't do anything to hurt you. His words stung, a sharp reminder of where his loyalties lay. This isn't just about being worried, Ethan. It's about control. She's trying to manipulate our lives. He shook his head, disbelief etched on his face. I don't know, Marin. She's my mom. She wouldn't. I cut him off, my voice rising. Wouldn't she? You've seen how she tries to insert herself into every decision we make. This is just another way for her to keep us under her thumb. Ethan opened his mouth to respond, but then closed it, his expression conflicted. I could see the struggle in his eyes, the tug of war between his love for me and his loyalty to his mother. I stood up, pacing the room to release some of the tension coiling inside me. I need you to see this, Ethan. I need you to understand what she's doing. He remained silent, his gaze fixed on the table. The silence stretched between us, heavy and oppressive. Finally, he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. What do you want me to do? I stopped pacing, turning to face him. I want you to talk to her. Set boundaries. Make her understand that this is our life, not hers to control. He nodded slowly, though his expression was still troubled. Okay, I'll talk to her. But his words didn't fill me with confidence. I knew how deep Lillian's hold was on him, and I couldn't shake the feeling that this conversation wouldn't be the last. Later that night, as I lay in bed, my mind refused to quiet down. I couldn't stop replaying the day's events, the confrontation with Ethan, the look of doubt in his eyes. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a precipice, unsure of what lay below. The next morning, I decided to take matters into my own hands. If Ethan couldn't see the truth, I needed to find someone who could. Someone who knew Lillian's tactics better than anyone else. I picked up the phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in years. It rang twice before a familiar voice answered. Hello? Oliver? It's Marin. I need your help. There was a pause, then Oliver's voice, cautious but curious. Marin? What's going on? I explained everything, from the proposal to Lillian's interference. As I spoke, I could hear Oliver's sharp intake of breath, the disbelief turning to understanding. Sounds like she hasn't changed, he said, his voice tinged with bitterness. She did the same to me, you know. Tried to control every aspect of my life until I had enough. I felt a sense of relief, knowing I wasn't alone in this. I don't know what to do, Oliver. I love Ethan, but I can't live like this. Oliver sighed, a sound filled with empathy. You need to protect yourself, Marin. Whatever that means for you. Don't let her dictate your life. His words resonated with me, a reminder that I had the power to change my situation. As I hung up, I felt a renewed sense of determination. I wouldn't let Lillian's manipulations define my future. But as I prepared to face whatever came next, I couldn't shake the feeling that the real battle was just beginning. And this time, I wouldn't back down. The days following my conversation with Oliver felt like a blur. I was on edge, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Ethan had promised to talk to Lillian, but I could sense his hesitation. Tension between us was a constant undercurrent, an unspoken rift growing wider with each passing day. One evening, Ethan came home later than usual, his expression weary. I was in the kitchen, attempting to distract myself with dinner preparations. The aroma of garlic and herbs filled the air, but it did little to soothe my nerves. Hey, he said, dropping his bag by the door. Sorry I'm late. Work was a mess. I nodded, trying to keep my tone light. No worries. Dinner's almost ready. He wandered over, peering into the pot. Smells great. I'm starving. We fell into a comfortable silence, the clinking of dishes the only sound between us. But I could feel the weight of the conversation we weren't having pressing down on me. Finally, I couldn't stand it any longer. Did you talk to your mom? Ethan stiffened, his shoulders tensing. I did. She didn't take it well, Marin. I stopped stirring, turning to face him. What did she say? He hesitated, running a hand through his hair. She got defensive. Said she was just trying to help and that you misunderstood her intentions. I let out a frustrated sigh. Ethan, this isn't just about intentions. It's about boundaries. She's crossing them. He met my gaze, his eyes filled with conflict. I know, but she's my mom. She's always been like this. I thought maybe she'd change, but... His voice trailed off, and I could see the struggle etched on his face. It was a familiar dance, one I'd seen too many times before. His loyalty to Lillian was a powerful force, one that often blinded him to the truth. I just need you to be on my side, I said softly, my voice tinged with desperation. He reached for my hand, squeezing it gently. I am Marin. I promise I'll talk to her again. But his words felt hollow, a promise without substance. I could feel the ground shifting beneath me, the precarious balance of our relationship tipping toward a breaking point. The next day, I decided to take a walk, hoping the fresh air would clear my head. As I strolled through the park, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to happen, a storm gathering on the horizon. My phone buzzed in my pocket, jolting me from my thoughts. It was a message from Tessa. Can we meet? I need to talk. I texted back, arranging to meet her at our favorite cafe. When I arrived, Tessa was already there, her expression serious. What's up? I asked, sliding into the seat across from her. She hesitated, then leaned forward, her voice low. I heard something, Marin. About Lillian. My heart skipped a beat. What is it? Tessa glanced around, ensuring no one was listening. A friend of mine works at the pharmacy. She overheard Lillian asking about your prescriptions again. It sounds like she's trying to change them. The news hit me like a punch to the gut. I felt a rush of anger mingled with fear. Why would she do that? Tessa shook her head, her eyes filled with concern. I don't know, but it's not right. You need to be careful. I nodded, though my mind was racing. Lillian's interference was becoming more brazen, and I couldn't ignore it any longer. I had to confront her to make her understand that her actions were unacceptable. That evening, I returned home, my resolve hardened. Ethan was in the living room, flipping through channels on the TV. I took a deep breath, preparing for the confrontation ahead. "We need to go see your mom," I said, my voice steady. He looked up, surprise flickering across his face. "Now?" "Yes, now. I can't keep living like this, Ethan. I need to talk to her." He hesitated, then nodded, sensing the urgency in my voice. "Okay. Let's go." The drive to Lillian's house was silent, tension crackling between us. When we arrived, I squared my shoulders, ready to face whatever lay ahead. Lillian answered the door, her expression a mix of surprise and curiosity. "Marin, Ethan." What a surprise. I met her gaze, refusing to back down. "We need to talk, Lillian." "About the prescriptions." Her eyes widened, a flash of something, guilt perhaps, crossing her face. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do," I pressed, my voice unwavering. "I know you've been interfering and it needs to stop." Finn stood beside me, silent but supportive. I could feel his presence, a reminder that I wasn't alone in this. Lillian's expression hardened, her facade slipping. "I was only trying to help, Marin." "You're making a mistake." "No, Lillian," I replied, my voice firm. "The mistake would be letting you continue to control our lives." As the words hung between us, I knew this was a turning point. It was time to take back control, to protect my future from Lillian's grasp. And this time I wouldn't falter. The days after confronting Lillian were a haze of tension and uncertainty. I had hoped that facing her head-on would bring some clarity, but instead it left me feeling more adrift than ever. Finn's promise to talk to her again hung in the air, unfulfilled and weighing heavily on my mind. One evening, as I sorted through the mail, a letter caught my eye. It was addressed to Ethan, but the return address was Lillian's. Curiosity got the better of me, and I hesitated for a moment before deciding to open it. What I found inside made my heart sink. The letter was a detailed list of expenses, all marked as reimbursements. But what struck me most was the amount, thousands of dollars funneled to Lillian over the past few months. My mind raced with questions. Why hadn't Ethan mentioned this? What else was he hiding? I confronted Ethan as soon as he walked through the door. "Ethan, we need to talk. Now." He looked taken aback by the urgency in my voice. "What's going on?" I handed him the letter, watching his expression shift from confusion to guilt. "What is this, Ethan? Why are you giving your mom all this money?" He ran a hand through his hair, his face a mask of frustration. "It's not what it looks like, Marin. She needed help with some bills, and I didn't want to worry you." I felt a wave of anger and betrayal wash over me. "You didn't want to worry me? Then we're supposed to be a team. How could you keep this from me?" He opened his mouth to respond, but I cut him off, my voice rising. "This isn't just about the money. It's about trust. How can I trust you when you keep secrets like this?" Finn's shoulders slumped, his expression one of defeat. "I'm sorry, Marin. I didn't know how to tell you. I thought I could handle it." I turned away, trying to process the whirlwind of emotions crashing over me. The man I loved, the man I thought I knew, had been keeping secrets that threatened to unravel everything we'd built. As I stood there, grappling with the weight of his betrayal, my phone buzzed with a message from Oliver. "We need to talk." "It's urgent." I didn't hesitate. I needed answers, and Oliver was the only one who could help me make sense of this mess. I left Ethan standing in the living room, his apologies ringing hollow in my ears. Meeting Oliver at a quiet cafe, I felt a sense of dread settle over me. He greeted me with a nod, his expression serious. "I'm glad you came. There's something you need to know." I leaned forward, my heart pounding. "What is it?" Oliver sighed, his gaze steady. "I've been looking into some things. Lillian's been using Ethan's money to pay off debts she's racked up over the years. She's been hiding it from him, manipulating him to keep him in the dark. The revelation hit me like a freight train. So she's been lying to him too? Oliver nodded. She's always been like this, Marin. She has a way of twisting things to keep people under her control. I felt a chill run down my spine, the enormity of Lillian's deception sinking in. I don't know what to do, Oliver. I feel like I'm losing everything. He reached across the table, his hand resting on mine. You're not alone in this, but you need to protect yourself. You can't let her pull you down with her. As I left the cafe, Oliver's words echoed in my mind. I knew he was right, but the path ahead felt impossibly daunting. My relationship with Ethan was crumbling, and the future I'd envisioned seemed to slip further out of reach with each passing day. Returning home, I found Ethan sitting on the couch, his head in his hands. He looked up as I entered, his eyes filled with regret. Marin, I'm sorry. I should have been honest with you. I nodded, though the hurt still lingered. I know, Ethan. But things need to change. We can't keep living like this. He nodded, his voice barely a whisper. I'll talk to her. I promise. But as I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, I couldn't shake the feeling that it was too late. The damage had been done, and I was left questioning everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and trust. The road ahead was uncertain, and I had no idea how to navigate it. But one thing was clear. I couldn't continue down this path without losing myself in the process. And that was a price I wasn't willing to pay. The decision to leave Ethan had been building like a storm, inevitable and unstoppable. But the moment I finally made up my mind, the reality of it hit me with a force I hadn't anticipated. I was about to dismantle the life we'd built together, brick by brick, and there was no turning back. I packed my things quietly, the sound of zippers and rustling clothes echoing in the silence of our apartment. Each item I placed in my suitcase felt like a piece of my heart being torn away, but I knew I had to do it. For my own sake. Ethan came home as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the room. He paused in the doorway, taking in the sight of my suitcase, and I saw the realization dawn in his eyes. Marin, what's going on? He asked, his voice laced with disbelief. I straightened, meeting his gaze with a resolve I hadn't known I possessed. I'm leaving, Ethan. I can't do this anymore. He took a step forward, his expression a mix of confusion and desperation. Leaving? Why? We can fix this. I shook my head, the words spilling out in a torrent. We can't fix what's broken, Ethan. Your mother's control, the secrets, the lies, it's too much. I need to protect myself. He reached for my hand, but I pulled away, the distance between us a chasm that couldn't be bridged. Marin, please. I'll talk to her. I'll make it right. I wanted to believe him, but I knew better. You've said that before, Ethan. And nothing's changed. I can't keep waiting for things to get better. The silence stretched between us, heavy and fraught with unspoken words. I could see the struggle in his eyes, the conflict between his loyalty to his mother and his love for me. As I turned to leave, the door swung open and Lillian stood there, her presence as commanding as ever. What's all this? She demanded, her gaze sweeping over the scene. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding in my chest. I'm leaving, Lillian. I can't be a part of this family anymore. Her eyes narrowed, a flicker of something, perhaps fear, crossing her face. You're making a mistake, Marin. You're throwing away everything. I met her gaze head-on, refusing to back down. No, Lillian. The mistake would be staying and letting you control my life. Ethan moved to stand between us, his voice pleading. Mom, please. Not now. But Lillian wasn't finished. You think you can just walk away? You'll regret this, Marin. You're nothing without this family. Her words stung, but they also fueled a fire within me. I squared my shoulders, my voice steady. I'm more than this, Lillian. I deserve better. Tension in the room was palpable, a living thing that pulsed between us. I could feel Ethan's eyes on me, searching for something, anything that might change my mind. But I was resolute. As I turned to go, Oliver appeared in the doorway, his presence a surprising comfort. He stepped forward, his gaze fixed on Lillian. "Enough, Mom. Let her go." Lillian's eyes widened, a mix of shock and betrayal. "Oliver, you have no right." "I have every right," he interrupted, his voice firm. "I've watched you manipulate and control for too long. It's time for it to stop." The room fell silent, the weight of Oliver's words hanging in the air. I felt a surge of gratitude toward him for standing up to her when I needed it most. With one last glance at Ethan, I picked up my suitcase and walked out the door, my heart heavy but my spirit unbroken. I could hear Lillian's voice fading behind me, her protests falling on deaf ears. As I stepped into the cool night air, I knew I was walking into the unknown. But for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of freedom, a lightness that came from finally taking control of my own life. Path ahead was uncertain, but it was mine to navigate. And as I moved forward, I knew I was leaving the past behind, ready to embrace whatever came next. Moving in with Tessa was like stepping into a different world, one where laughter and warmth replaced the tension and unease that had become so familiar. Her apartment was a haven, filled with vibrant artwork and the comforting aroma of fresh coffee. It was a place where I could finally breathe. As the days turned into weeks, I began to piece my life back together. Tessa's unwavering support was a constant reminder that I wasn't alone in this journey. She encouraged me to focus on my work, to find joy in the small victories, and to embrace the independence I had longed for. One sunny afternoon, as we sat on her balcony sipping iced tea, Tessa turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "You seem lighter, Mon. Like you found yourself again." I smiled, feeling the truth of her words. "I think I have. It's been a long time coming." She nodded, her eyes filled with pride. "You've come a long way. I'm proud of you." We sat in comfortable silence, the gentle breeze carrying away the remnants of past burdens. It was a moment of peace, a glimpse of the life I was slowly rebuilding. But the past wasn't entirely behind me. One evening, as I sorted through a box of old letters and keepsakes, I stumbled upon an envelope addressed in Lillian's familiar handwriting. Curiosity piqued, I opened it, unsure of what I might find. Inside was a letter, the words carefully penned and surprisingly vulnerable. Lillian wrote of her regrets, her fear of being alone, and her misguided attempts to keep her family close. It was a side of her I hadn't seen before, a glimpse into the loneliness that had driven her actions. I read the letter twice, absorbing the raw emotion within it. Didn't excuse her behavior, but it offered a new perspective, a reminder that even those who hurt us are often struggling with their own demons. Later, I met Oliver for coffee, eager to share the letter and my thoughts. He listened intently, his expression thoughtful. "It's strange, isn't it? How people can be so complicated." I nodded, reflecting on the tangled web of relationships that had brought us to this point. "It makes you wonder about forgiveness and understanding." Oliver smiled, a hint of warmth in his eyes. "Maybe it's about finding peace, even if things don't go the way we hoped." His words resonated with me, a reminder that life was rarely black and white. As we parted ways, I felt a sense of closure, a newfound acceptance of the past and all its complexities. Months passed, and the seasons changed. I found myself at a family gathering with Oliver, surrounded by laughter and the joyful chaos of children playing. I watched as Oliver's kids chased each other through the garden, their laughter echoing in the warm afternoon air. Among them was my son, a vibrant reminder of the future I was building. I felt a wave of gratitude wash over me, for the journey that had brought me here and the lessons I had learned along the way. As I stood there, watching the scene unfold, I realized that family wasn't just about blood or obligation. It was about love, respect, and the connections we chose to nurture. It was about building a life that honored both the past and the possibilities of the future. In that moment, I understood that true strength came from embracing all the parts of myself, the independent woman, the loving mother, and the resilient survivor. I had faced my fears, confronted the shadows of my past, and emerged stronger for it. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the garden, I felt a sense of peace settle within me. The journey had been long and fraught with challenges, but it had also been a path of growth and self-discovery. And as I watched my son play, surrounded by the family we had chosen, I knew that the future was bright. It was a new dawn, a fresh start filled with hope and the promise of all that was yet to come.
I never thought I'd be hiding in my own office bathroom, pressed against the cold tile wall, straining to hear my mother-in-law plotting to destroy my career. But there I was, holding my breath as Veronica Everhart's voice drifted through the ventilation system from the conference room below. My name is Callie, and until 10 minutes ago, I thought I was having a pretty decent day. I'd just closed a major deal with our biggest client, the kind of win that usually meant celebration drinks and proud smiles from my husband Nolan. Instead, I was learning just how much my family wanted me gone. She's not Everhart material, Bianca. She never was. Veronica's voice carried that familiar aristocratic edge that always made me feel like I needed to check if there was dirt on my shoes. Your brother made a mistake marrying her, but we can at least fix the business side of things. I heard my sister-in-law's eager reply. I can take over her accounts within a month. My MBA dash. Yes, dear, we know about your Master of Business Administration. Veronica cut her off. The board meeting next week is our chance. I've already spoken to several members about restructuring the sales department. With your qualifications and the family name, it should be a smooth transition. My hands started shaking. 6 years of building client relationships, of proving myself worthy of the Everhart name, and they were going to erase it all in a single board meeting. I pressed my palm against my mouth to keep from making a sound as Bianca continued outlining their plans. What about Nolan? Bianca asked. He's always been protective of her. Leave your brother to me, Veronica replied. He needs to understand that some sacrifices are necessary for the family's legacy. The familiar click of Veronica's heels signaled their departure, but I stayed frozen in place, my mind racing. Every awkward family dinner, every backhanded compliment, every time Veronica had introduced me as Nolan's wife instead of by my position in the company. It all made terrible sense now. I finally stepped out of the bathroom on unsteady legs, catching my reflection in the mirror. My carefully applied makeup couldn't hide how pale I'd gone, and my dark hair was coming loose from its professional updo. I looked exactly like what Veronica had always seen, an outsider trying too hard to fit in. The walk back to my office felt like moving through fog. I barely noticed Jasper, our operations manager, until he touched my arm. Callie, you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. I forced a smile. I'm fine, just thinking about the Langston account. You mean the one you just landed? He raised an eyebrow. The one that's going to boost our quarterly numbers by 30%? Yeah, that must be really stressful. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a text from Nolan. Dinner tonight? Mom wants to discuss something important. My stomach lurched. Of course she did. I typed back. Can't tonight. Working late on Langston contract details. His response was immediate. Come on, Cal. You know how she gets. Please. 6 years ago, I'd fallen in love with Nolan's warm smile and kind heart. I'd thought his family's cold shoulder was just temporary, that they'd warm up once they saw how dedicated I was to both Nolan and the company. Now I realized I'd been naive. I looked at the family photos on my desk, holiday gatherings where I stood slightly apart, corporate events where Veronica managed to place Bianca front and center. All those little signs I'd ignored. Sorry, I texted back. Really can't make it. I turned to Jasper, who was still watching me with concern. Actually, I could use your help with something. What do you know about board meeting procedures? He tilted his head, curious. Enough to be dangerous. Why? I squared my shoulders, feeling the first spark of anger cutting through my shock. Because I think it's time I learned how to play this game by the Everhart rules. My phone buzzed again, probably Nolan or Veronica, but I ignored it. I had 1 week to save everything I'd worked for, and I wasn't going down without a fight. The morning after discovering Veronica's plan, I walked into the office to find Bianca sitting at my desk, flipping through my client files. She looked up with that practiced, innocent expression I'd seen her perfect over years of family dinners. Oh, Callie, I hope you don't mind. Mother thought it would be good for me to shadow you for a while, learn the ropes of the sales department. I set my coffee down harder than necessary, watching it slosh against the sides of the cup. Funny, no one mentioned that to me. It was just decided this morning. Bianca's smile didn't reach her eyes. Actually, I've already scheduled meetings with the Langston Group for later today. I thought I could take point on their account, give you a break. My stomach dropped. The Langston account was my biggest win, worth millions to the company. That won't be necessary. Mr. Langston specifically requested to work with me. Well, things change. She straightened her designer blazer. Mother thinks it's important to have an Everhart handling our premium clients. Before I could respond, Nolan appeared in the doorway. There are my two favorite ladies. Getting along already. I watched him cross the room, noting how he kissed Bianca's cheek first before coming to me. Small gestures like that had been adding up lately, like grains of sand in an hourglass measuring the time until my marriage crumbled. Honey, I said, keeping my voice steady, can we talk privately? In my small office bathroom, the same one where I'd overheard their plot, I told Nolan everything. The conversation I'd overheard, Veronica's plans, Bianca's sudden appearance at my desk. With each word, I watched his face shift from concern to that careful blank expression he wore during difficult business negotiations. You must have misunderstood, he said finally. Mother would never dash. Stop. My voice cracked. Please don't do that. Don't pretend this isn't exactly what she's always wanted. He ran a hand through his hair, a nervous habit from childhood according to the family photos in his office. What do you want me to do, Callie? Tell my mother and sister they can't be involved in the family business. I want you to stand up for me. For us. I reached for his hand, but he stepped back. It's complicated, Dash. It's really not. I felt something break inside me, like a dam giving way. Your mother is trying to push me out of the company, and you're letting her. A knock at the door made us both jump. Jasper's voice came through. Callie? Mr. Langston is on line 1. He's not happy about something. Nolan seized the interruption like a lifeline. We'll talk about this later, okay? Just try to work with Bianca. For me. I watched him leave, then pressed my forehead against the cool mirror. When I finally returned to my desk, Bianca was gone, but she'd left her mark. My files were reorganized, my calendar had been accessed, and there was a new photo frame on my desk, a picture of her and Nolan as children, their mother beaming between them. My phone buzzed with a text from Jasper. Emergency meeting called for 3 p.m. Board members flying in. Something big happening. I looked out my office window at the city below, remembering the day Nolan had proposed. We'd been right there in that park across the street, and he'd promised me we'd build something amazing together. Now I wondered if I'd been building on quicksand all along. My computer pinged with a new email from Veronica, addressed to the entire sales team. Please join me in welcoming Bianca Everhart as our new Associate Sales Director. Her expertise will be invaluable as we move forward with restructuring the department. I closed the email and opened my client files instead. If they wanted a war, they'd get one. But first, I needed to call Mr. Langston and find out exactly what Bianca had said to upset our most valuable client. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. It's about being so damn good at what you do that they destroy themselves trying to take you down. The quarterly reports landed on my desk like a bomb waiting to explode. 3 weeks of Bianca's leadership had done exactly what I'd expected. The Langston account was in shambles. I flipped through page after page of mishandled transactions, unauthorized promises, and botched negotiations. My phone lit up with Mr. Langston's name for the 3rd time that morning. I'd been dodging his calls, buying time while I figured out how to fix this mess without destroying what little was left of my marriage. You need to see this, Jasper said, appearing in my doorway with more papers. Bianca just submitted a proposal to restructure our entire client portfolio. She's planning to redistribute all your accounts. I skimmed the document, my hands shaking. She's splitting up the Langston subsidiaries between 5 different account managers. That'll destroy the integrated service model we spent 2 years building. That's not all. Jasper lowered his voice. Look at page 4. There it was, buried in corporate jargon. A recommendation to terminate my position due to redundancy in the organizational structure. The office suddenly felt too small, too warm. I grabbed my laptop and the reports. I need to talk to Nolan. Now. I found him in the conference room with Veronica and Bianca, all 3 heads bent over some presentation. The family resemblance had never been more striking, or more alienating. We need to discuss the Langston account, I said, trying to keep my voice professional despite the fury building in my chest. Veronica's perfectly lined lips curved into a smile. Bianca has everything under control, dear. No need to worry yourself. Under control? I dropped the reports on the table. She's destroyed 6 months of work in 3 weeks. Mr. Langston is threatening to pull his business. Bianca's face flushed. I'm implementing a more efficient system. You're implementing chaos. I turned to Nolan. Look at the numbers. Really look at them. He picked up the report, but Veronica placed her hand over his. Nolan, darling, remember what we discussed about emotional decisions versus business ones? Emotional. I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. Okay, let's talk business. Bianca's efficient system has cost us 15% in projected revenue. She's alienated our biggest client, and now she's trying to dismantle the entire sales structure to cover her incompetence. That's enough. Nolan's voice cracked like a whip. Callie, you're obviously upset about the changes, but attacking Bianca isn't helping. Attacking her? I stared at him, this stranger wearing my husband's face. I'm trying to save our company. Our company? Veronica's voice dripped with disdain. I think you're forgetting your place, dear. This is the Everhart family business. Something snapped inside me. I pulled up my email on the conference room screen and opened Mr. Langston's latest message. Read it. Out loud, Nolan. Read what your sister's leadership has done to our relationship with our most valuable client. The room fell silent as Nolan scanned the email, his face growing paler with each line. Bianca shifted in her seat, her confident facade cracking. I didn't. She stammered. Mother, Nolan said quietly. Could you and Bianca give us a minute? Absolutely not, Veronica replied. Whatever needs to be said can be said in front of family. Fine. I pulled up another document. Then let's talk about this termination proposal. Were you planning to tell me about it, Nolan? Or were you going to let your sister handle that too? His head snapped up. What termination proposal? But before anyone could respond, Jasper burst into the room. Mr. Langston is here. In person. And he's furious. Through the glass walls, I could see Mr. Langston stalking across the office floor, his face thunderous. Bianca went pale, Veronica straightened her spine, and Nolan looked like he might be sick. I gathered my things, a strange calm settling over me. I'll handle this. But afterward, we're going to have a very different conversation about the future of this company and our marriage. As I walked out, I heard Veronica hiss. Do something, Nolan. But for once, my husband stayed silent, and that silence said everything about where we stood. I spent 3 hours in damage control with Mr. Langston, watching 6 years of carefully built trust crumble like sand between my fingers. When I finally emerged from the conference room, my throat was raw from talking, and my hands trembled as I gathered my things. How bad is it? Jasper asked, falling into step beside me. He's giving us 2 weeks to fix everything Bianca messed up, or he's taking his business elsewhere. I stopped at my office door, staring at the nameplate that now seemed more like a countdown timer. Where is everyone? Emergency board meeting. They didn't invite you. Of course they hadn't. I dropped into my chair, noticing the family photo on my desk had been replaced again. This time with a framed copy of Bianca's Master of Business Administration diploma. The pettiness of it almost made me laugh. My phone buzzed with a text from Nolan. Where are you? Mother's presenting the restructuring plan. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my laptop and started downloading every file, every email, every piece of evidence of what Bianca's leadership had done to our clients. I wasn't going down without proof. Callie. Jasper's voice was unusually serious. There's something else you should know. I overheard Veronica on the phone earlier. She's been meeting with Harrison and Mills. My stomach dropped. Harrison and Mills was our biggest competitor. Why would she dash? They're discussing a merger. One that would effectively dissolve our sales department and integrate their team instead. The room spun slightly. A merger would mean everyone in my department would lose their jobs. Not just me, but the entire team I'd built. All to get rid of one unwanted daughter-in-law. My phone rang, Nolan again. This time I answered. Where are you? He sounded stressed. The board's asking questions about the Langston situation. Are they? Funny how nobody asked me. You know, the person who just spent 3 hours saving our biggest account. Don't be difficult, Callie. Just come up here and dash. And what? Watch while your mother and sister dismantle everything we've built? Listen to more lies about how I'm the problem. Silence stretched between us like a chasm. Finally, he said quietly, they're not lying about everything. The numbers dash. The numbers are manipulated, and you know it. My voice cracked. But that's not even the point anymore. When was I going to hear about Harrison and Mills? His sharp intake of breath told me everything. Who told you about that? Does it matter? Were you going to tell me before or after I was unemployed? It's not what you think. Mother says dash. Mother says. Mother thinks. Mother wants. I pressed my palm against my burning eyes. When was the last time you thought for yourself, Nolan? More silence. Then, just come to the meeting. Please. We can figure this out. I looked at Jasper, who was pretending not to listen while organizing files. I thought about my team, about the clients who trusted us, about the life I'd thought I was building. No, I said finally. I'm done playing by Veronica's rules. You want to know where I am? I'm in my office, preparing evidence of every mistake, every mishandled account, every illegal promise Bianca has made in the last month. And tomorrow morning, I'm taking it all to the board, with or without your support. Callie, don't dash. One more thing. I cut him off. Check your email. Mr. Langston sent over his conditions for staying with us. Spoiler alert. They all involve removing Bianca from his accounts and restoring the original management structure. So you have a choice to make, your mother's pride or the company's future. I hung up before he could respond. My hands were steady now, anger burning away the uncertainty. What do you need? Jasper asked quietly. Access to the archived files from before Bianca started. And I hesitated, then pulled out my wedding ring, setting it on the desk next to Bianca's diploma. Some boxes. I think it's time I cleared out my office. Sometimes the hardest part of fighting back isn't facing your enemies. It's accepting that the people you thought would fight beside you are the ones you're fighting against. The call came at 3 a.m. I was still at the office, surrounded by stacks of evidence I'd compiled against Bianca, when Jasper burst through the door. Nolan's been in an accident. The world tilted sideways. I grabbed my keys, dropping files across the floor, but Jasper caught my arm. Veronica's already at the hospital. He hesitated. She's telling staff you're not family. Of course she was. I snatched my phone, dialing Nolan's number out of habit, only to hear it ringing from his empty office down the hall. The sound echoed like a ghost. I'll drive, Jasper said quietly. At the hospital, Veronica stood like a sentinel outside the ICU, Bianca at her side. Their matching Everheart blue blazers made them look like guards at a fortress I wasn't meant to breach. He's in surgery, Veronica announced before I could speak. Family only. I'm his wife. For now. She smiled thinly. Though given recent events, I imagine that status might change soon. My hands clenched. What happened? He was upset after your little ultimatum. Bianca's voice dripped with accusation. Driving too fast, I expect. The implication hit like a slap. They were blaming me for this. Before I could respond, a doctor approached with updates about head trauma, internal bleeding, and induced coma. The words blurred together as I watched Veronica and Bianca nod along, making decisions about my husband's care without even glancing my way. I need to see him, I said when the doctor finished. That won't be necessary. Veronica's voice could have frozen hell. We've got everything under control. In fact, given the circumstances, I think it's best you return to the office. Someone needs to handle the transition. Transition? Bianca pulled out a folder. Emergency succession protocols. As the only blood relative with executive experience, I'll be taking temporary control of operations while Nolan recovers. You can't dash. Actually, we can. Veronica produced another document. Nolan's will is quite clear about succession rights. Blood relatives only. You should read it carefully, dear. Consider it professional development. My vision tunneled. All those nights Nolan had worked late with his mother on estate planning. This was what they'd been doing, ensuring I could never threaten the precious Everheart legacy. Mrs. Everheart? A nurse appeared. Your son is asking for someone. It sounds like Cal. Hope flared in my chest, but Veronica stepped forward smoothly. That would be Calvin, his childhood friend. We'll explain that he can't be here right now. The nurse frowned. I thought dash. Thank you, we'll handle it. Veronica's tone left no room for argument. I watched them disappear into the ICU, these women who'd orchestrated my removal from every aspect of my life with surgical precision. Even now, they were rewriting my existence, turning Cal into Calvin, erasing me from Nolan's story one piece at a time. My phone buzzed. An email from Bianca to the entire company announcing her temporary leadership position, effective immediately. Below it was a message from Mr. Langston. Meeting tomorrow, 9 a.m. Non-negotiable. Callie. Jasper touched my shoulder. There's something else you should see. He handed me his tablet, showing security footage from the parking garage. Nolan's car leaving the office. A second car, Bianca's, following close behind. The timestamp matched exactly when I'd issued my ultimatum about the board meeting. The police should dash. The police, Veronica's voice cut in as she returned, have already ruled it an accident. Single car mechanical failure. Such a tragedy. She placed special emphasis on mechanical, her eyes meeting mine in clear challenge. The message was crystal clear. They'd thought of everything. They always did. I looked through the ICU window at my husband, lying still among machines and tubes. Then down at the wedding ring I'd put back on for the hospital visit. 6 years of marriage, of fighting to belong, of loving a man who'd let his family write me out of his life before he'd even met me. "You win," I said quietly, turning to leave. "Oh, darling," Veronica called after me. "We won a long time ago. You're just finally catching up." But she was wrong. This wasn't over. Because she'd forgotten one crucial detail. I had nothing left to lose. The 9 a.m. meeting with Mr. Langston wasn't going well. I sat across from him in his downtown office, watching 6 years of relationship building crumble as Bianca fumbled through another presentation. "Miss Everhart," he interrupted, "you've just proposed exactly what your predecessor, Mrs. Everhart here, advised against 3 months ago." Bianca's perfectly manicured nails dug into her portfolio. "The market conditions have changed dash. The only thing that's changed is the leadership." He turned to me. "Callie, what's your take on this mess?" Before I could answer, Veronica swept into the room, all designer suit and practiced concern. "Mr. Langston, I apologize for the confusion. Callie is no longer authorized to speak on behalf of Everhart Trading. Then I'm no longer authorized to do business with you." He stood, straightening his tie. "My contract was with Callie. She leaves, we leave. That won't be necessary." Veronica's smile didn't reach her eyes. "We have something that might change your mind." She slid a document across the table, a copy of the confidentiality agreement I'd signed when joining the company. Highlighted in yellow was a clause about client relationships post-employment. "If Callie attempts to maintain any professional contact with Everhart clients," Veronica explained smoothly, "we'll be forced to pursue legal action. Against both parties." Mr. Langston's face hardened. "You'd sue your own clients? We protect our interests." Veronica's voice could have frozen hell. "By any means necessary." The meeting ended shortly after, with Mr. Langston storming out and Bianca trailing behind, trying to salvage something from the wreckage. I stayed seated, staring at the agreement that had just destroyed my last hope of fighting back. "You know," Veronica mused, collecting her things, "this could have been avoided if you'd just accepted your place. As Nolan's wife, nothing more. Is that why you had Bianca follow him that night?" Her hand paused over her briefcase. "Careful, dear. Accusations like that could be considered slander. And with Nolan still in his condition." My phone buzzed, Jasper calling. I ignored it. He'd been trying to reach me all morning with updates about the security footage, but what was the point now? Veronica had thought of everything. "You should visit him," she continued. "While you still can. The divorce papers are being drawn up as we speak. He's in a coma. Power of attorney is a wonderful thing." She patted my shoulder as she passed. "Don't worry, we'll make sure he's well taken care of. Bye, family." I waited until she left before pulling out my own copy of Nolan's will, the one I'd found in his home office the night before. The blood relatives only clause was there, highlighted and initialed by Veronica herself. But there was something else, something that had been nagging at me since I'd read it. My phone buzzed again. This time I answered. "The footage is gone," Jasper said without preamble. "Someone wiped the entire system last night. But I managed to save Dash. It doesn't matter anymore." I traced the words on the will with my finger. "They've won. Callie Dash." But I just realized something. I sat up straighter, reading the clause again. Veronica's been so focused on blood relatives, she forgot about blood types. "What?" "Nolan's medical records. I need them. And I need everything you can find about Bianca's birth." "Why?" I thought about Veronica's perfect planning, about how she'd orchestrated every detail of my removal, about how sometimes the most obvious truth is hidden in plain sight. Because according to this will, only blood relatives can inherit. And I don't think Bianca is one. The silence on the other end stretched for a moment before Jasper let out a low whistle. "That's why she's always been the favorite. Veronica's been overcompensating." "Exactly. And if we can prove it, Dash, they'll destroy you. They already have." I stood, gathering my things. But maybe that's what I needed. Because now I can see what they couldn't. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about winning. What's it about? I looked at my reflection in the office window, seeing not the broken woman they'd tried to create, but but someone stronger. Someone dangerous. It's about making sure everyone loses together. The emergency board meeting was already in session when I walked in, Jasper at my side with a manila envelope tucked under his arm. Veronica stood at the head of the table, mid-speech about succession planning, while Bianca sat in Nolan's chair like she'd been born to it. "I'm afraid this is a closed meeting," Veronica said, her smile razor-sharp. "Actually, I placed a stack of documents on the table. I think you'll want to hear this." "Security." Bianca reached for the phone, but Jasper was faster. "Already handled. They're quite interested in the footage of you following Nolan's car that night." The color drained from Bianca's face. Veronica's smile didn't waver, but her knuckles went white around her pen. "The board has already accepted Bianca's position," she said smoothly. "The will is quite clear about blood relatives dash. Funny you should mention blood." I opened the first folder. "Did you know Nolan has typo-negative blood? Rare, but well documented in his medical records. And according to these," I slid another document forward, "his father was typo-positive." The room went deadly quiet. One of the board members picked up the paper, frowning. "Basic genetics," I continued. "It's impossible for two type A parents to have a type O child. But that's not the interesting part." Veronica's composure cracked. "This is ridiculous dash. The interesting part," I raised my voice, "is Bianca's birth certificate. The original one, not the amended version filed 2 years later." Bianca's hands began to shake. "Mother?" "Don't," Veronica snapped, but it was too late. "Your mother's been overcompensating for years, hasn't she, Bianca? Making sure you got every advantage, every opportunity. Not because you earned it, but because she felt guilty. That's enough." Veronica slammed her hand on the table. "No, it's not." I turned to the board. "The will specifies blood relatives only. Bianca isn't one. She never was." Chaos erupted. Board members talking over each other, Bianca crying, Veronica trying to regain control. Through it all, I stayed standing, watching years of careful manipulation unravel. Then a voice cut through the noise. "Let me see those papers." Everyone froze. Nolan stood in the doorway, pale and leaning heavily on a walker, but very much awake. "Darling," Veronica rushed forward. "You should be in bed, dash." I said, his voice was hoarse but firm, "Let me see the papers." I handed him the folder, our fingers brushing. His hand was cold, but his grip was strong. "How long have you known?" he asked his mother as he read. "Nolan, please dash." "How long?" "Since the day she was born." Veronica's voice cracked. "Your father. He would have destroyed us if he'd known. I had to protect our family. By lying? By trying to destroy my marriage? By having Bianca follow me that night? That was an accident." Bianca sobbed. "I just wanted to talk to you, to explain dash." "Enough." Nolan's voice was ice. He turned to the board. "I trust you'll find my wife's evidence compelling enough to void any decisions made in my absence." The chairman nodded quickly. Veronica stepped forward one last time. "Everything I did was for this family." "No," Nolan replied. "Everything you did was for control. And now you've lost it." He held out his hand to me. "Take me home, Cal." I moved to support him, feeling his weight settle against me. As we turned to leave, Bianca called out, "What about me?" I looked back at her, seeing not the polished executive, but a scared woman whose entire identity had just shattered. "That depends," I said quietly. "Are you ready to earn your place instead of stealing someone else's?" She met my eyes for the first time without hostility, and nodded slowly. "Sometimes revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. Sometimes it's about being strong enough to offer them a chance at redemption, but on your terms, not theirs." As we left, I heard Veronica's heels clicking rapidly away in the opposite direction. She might have lost this battle, but I knew better than to think the war was over. But that was tomorrow's problem. Today, I had my husband back and we had a company to rebuild. Together. 6 months after the board meeting showdown, I stood in my office, packing the last of my personal items. Not because I was leaving, quite the opposite. I was moving into a larger space down the hall, one with a view of both the city and the future I'd fought so hard to secure. The door opened and Bianca stepped in, carrying a stack of reports. She'd traded her designer suits for more practical business and the constant need to prove herself had been replaced by something quieter, more genuine. "The Langston Quarterly Review," she said, placing them on my desk. "I've highlighted the areas where we could improve efficiency." I flipped through the pages, noting her careful analysis. "Good work. Why don't you present these findings at next week's meeting?" She looked startled. "Are you sure? You earned it." I met her eyes. "The right way this time." She nodded, understanding the weight of those words. As she turned to leave, she paused. Have you heard from Mother? Not since she moved to Europe. I didn't mention the occasional threatening emails or the lawyers she still sent our way. Some wounds needed time to heal, or at least scar over properly. Nolan appeared in the doorway, leaning on his cane. His recovery had been slow but steady, much like the rebuilding of our relationship. Ready for lunch? Almost. I gathered my things, including the small sonogram photo I'd been waiting to show him. Some news deserved to be delivered in person. We took the elevator down together, Bianca heading to her department while Nolan and I stepped out into the bright spring day. The park where he'd proposed was blooming again, life returning after a long winter. Jasper called, he said as we walked. The merger with Harrison and Mills is officially dead. Turns out they were more interested in Mother's promises than our actual business model. I squeezed his hand. Are you okay? With all of it? He stopped, turning to face me. You know what I realized while I was in that coma? I could hear everything. Every scheme, every lie, every time someone tried to speak for me instead of to me. His voice softened. And every time you fought for what we built together. We all fought for something, I said, thinking of Bianca's slow journey toward redemption, of Jasper's quiet loyalty, of Mr. Langston's faith in second chances. Some of us just took longer to figure out what was worth fighting for. Speaking of fighting, he pulled out an envelope. These came this morning. Mother's lawyers again. I took the envelope but didn't open it. Instead, I handed him the sonogram photo. I think we have more important things to focus on. His eyes widened as he understood what he was seeing. Is this? Due in winter. I smiled. Apparently the Everhart legacy will continue after all, just not quite how your mother planned. He pulled me close, and for a moment we just stood there, surrounded by spring flowers and possibilities. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Bianca about an urgent client matter. Back to work? Nolan asked. Always. I took his arm as we turned back toward the office. But this time we're doing it right. Building something worth inheriting, not just something worth fighting over. As we walked, I thought about revenge and redemption. About how sometimes the best victory isn't in destroying your enemies, but in becoming strong enough to offer them grace. About how family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about choice, about trust rebuilt and lessons learned the hard way. The envelope from Veronica's lawyers crinkled in my bag, unopened. Whatever threats or schemes it contained could wait. We had a company to run, a baby to prepare for, and a future to build. And this time we were building it together, on a foundation of truth instead of manipulation, of earned trust instead of inherited power. It wasn't perfect, family never is, but it was ours. Sometimes the happiest endings aren't about winning or losing. They're about finding the strength to write your own story, even when others try to write it for you. And our story, it was just beginning.
The attic smells like forgotten promises and stale regret. Dust motes dance in the beam of sunlight streaming through the small window, making the air look thick enough to chew. I've been sorting through my grandparents' belongings for hours, boxing up decades of memories they've collected in this cramped space. Welcome to today's tale. Before we begin, share your location with our community. Let's see how far these stories travel. Don't forget to subscribe for more. Now then. My name is June, and I'm doing what good granddaughters do, helping clear out the mess before they downsize to their new condo. At least that's what I tell myself as I wade through cardboard boxes and steamer trunks. Found anything interesting up there? Grandma Helen's voice floats up from below. Just more Christmas decorations, I call back, pushing aside a box labeled 1985 tax returns. And about 50 years of Reader's Digest. That's when I see it, a pale blue envelope peeking out from beneath a stack of old photo albums. The paper is thin, delicate, like it might crumble in my hands. My mother's handwriting jumps out at me immediately. I'd recognize those precise, angular letters anywhere. The letter is dated March 15, 1999. I would have been 3 months old. Dear Mom. I don't know how to say this without sounding terrible, but I need to tell someone. I never wanted a second child. Robert and I were perfect with just Jessica. She was everything we dreamed of, beautiful, smart, our little miracle. This new baby. June. She feels like an intruder. Every time she cries, I want to scream. Robert barely looks at her. We're both just going through the motions. I know you'll judge me for this, but I had to tell someone. Sometimes I look at her and feel nothing but regret. Love. Emily. The paper trembles in my hands. My throat closes up, and something hot and sharp twists in my chest. All those years of sideways glances, forgotten birthdays, and half-hearted hugs suddenly make perfect sense. June. You've gone quiet up there. Grandma's voice again, tinged with concern. I stuffed the letter in my pocket. I'm fine, I manage, but my voice cracks on the second word. Footsteps on the stairs. Grandma appears in the attic doorway, her face softening when she sees me. Oh, sweetheart. You found it. You knew about this. She crosses the room and pulls me into her arms. I smell her familiar lavender perfume, feel the softness of her cardigan against my cheek. Your grandfather and I have been trying to protect you since the day you were born. From what? The truth that my own parents never wanted me. From their limitations, she says firmly. Their inability to see what was right in front of them, a beautiful, brilliant girl who deserved so much more than their indifference. I pull away, wiping my eyes with the back of my hand. Is that why you and Grandpa have always been there? Of course. We saw what was happening. We couldn't stand by and watch you fade into Jessica's shadow. The letter burns in my pocket like a brand. All those years of trying to prove myself, of competing with Jessica's golden child status. Of seeking approval that would never come, it wasn't just in my head. It was real. It is real. What do I do now? I whisper. Grandma takes my hand, her grip surprisingly strong. You live. You thrive. You show them exactly what they missed out on. She pauses, studying my face. And maybe, just maybe, you make them regret every moment they took you for granted. Something shifts inside me, like tectonic plates realigning. The hurt is still there, but it's hardening into something else, something with edges sharp enough to cut. I think I'd like that, I say quietly, and for the first time since finding the letter, I smile. Grandma squeezes my hand. Then let's start with getting you through college. Your grandfather and I have been saving for years. It's time you knew about that too. The attic suddenly feels less like a graveyard of memories and more like a launching pad. I may have been an unwanted child, but I'm done being an unwanted adult. My mother's words might have broken something inside me today, but they've also set something free. And I intend to make every single one of them remember this moment. 3 days after finding the letter, I'm sitting at my parents' dining room table, pretending to care about Jessica's wedding color schemes. My sister spreads magazine clippings across the polished mahogany like she's planning a military campaign. The venue alone is $60,000, Jessica announces, tapping a glossy photo of some vineyard estate. But Daddy already promised it's not an issue. Mother beams at her. Nothing but the best for our special girl. I concentrate on my coffee, watching the cream swirl into patterns. My acceptance letter to graduate school burns a hole in my bag, the one I haven't mentioned yet because I already know what they'll say. Or won't say. June could help with the centerpieces, Jessica suggests, not looking up from her magazines. Save us some money there. I can't, I say. I'll be busy with school. Now they look at me. Mother's perfectly plucked eyebrows arch upward. Still. Surely you've gotten enough education by now. I got accepted to Columbia's financial analytics program. The words tumble out before I can stop them. Full-time, starting this fall. The silence that follows feels like a vacuum. Jessica's mouth twists into something between a smirk and a frown. How exactly are you planning to pay for that? I've been saving, I say. And Grandma and Grandpa. Oh, June. Mother's voice drips with familiar disappointment. You can't keep expecting your grandparents to support you. They're getting older. They need to think about their own future. Father finally looks up from his phone. Colombia's expensive. We've already committed our resources to Jessica's wedding. Maybe in a few years. A few years. I grip my coffee mug tighter. Like after you've paid for Jessica's third destination wedding. That's uncalled for, Mother snaps. Your sister found real love this time. Michael is different. Jessica preens. He's already talking about buying that house in Greenwich. Once his startup takes off. Which startup is this? I ask. The fourth one. Fifth. You're just jealous, Jessica hisses. Some of us actually have ambition. I stand up so quickly my chair scrapes against the floor. Ambition. I worked through undergrad. I maintained a 4.0 GPA. I got into one of the top graduate programs in the country. But none of that matters because I'm not Jessica. Sit down, Father orders. You're being dramatic. Through the dining room window, I spot Grandpa's car pulling into the driveway. He's early to pick me up. Thank God. I have to go, I say, grabbing my bag. Enjoy planning the $60,000 party. June. Mother's voice stops me at the door. We just want what's best for you. Maybe it's time to be practical. Get a job, start building a real life instead of hiding in school. I turn back slowly. You know what? You're right. It is time to be practical. Time to accept that nothing I do will ever be enough for you. Because I'm not your real daughter, I'm just your regret. Mother's face goes white. What are you talking about? Ask Grandma about the letter, I say, and walk out. Grandpa's waiting in his old Volvo, radio playing soft jazz. One look at my face and he knows. Rough meeting. They're spending $60,000 just on the venue for Jessica's wedding. My voice shakes. But when I mentioned grad school. Already taken care of, he says quietly. Your grandmother and I set up a trust for your education years ago. We knew this day would come. I stare at him. But that's your retirement money. He chuckles. June, watching you succeed will be better than any retirement. Now, want to tell me what really happened in there? You look like you dropped quite a bomb. I mentioned the letter. My hands clench in my lap. I shouldn't have, but. Good. Good. Sometimes people need their comfortable lives disrupted. He puts the car in drive. Now, how about we go get some ice cream and talk about Colombia? As we pull away, I catch a glimpse of Mother watching from the window. For the first time, I don't feel the usual stab of guilt and longing. Instead, I feel something new taking root, something that tastes like freedom and burns like revenge. The mortgage documents scatter across my laptop screen like pieces of a puzzle I never wanted to solve. My hands shake as I scroll through the county records database, each click revealing another layer of my parents' financial desperation. Second mortgage. Home equity line of credit. Personal loans. All taken out within the last 3 months. All coinciding perfectly with Jessica's wedding preparations. My phone buzzes. Another text from Mother, we need to discuss your attitude at the next wedding planning meeting. I ignore it, focusing instead on the numbers that don't lie. They've leveraged everything, the house, their retirement accounts, even Dad's life insurance policy, all for Jessica's perfect day. A knock at my bedroom door makes me jump. Come in, Grandma. She enters with a cup of tea, her face creasing with concern when she sees my expression. You found something. They're drowning themselves for her. I turn the laptop around. Look at these numbers. They'll lose everything if anything goes wrong. If Michael's latest startup fails again, if Jessica decides she needs more, Grandma finishes, setting down the tea. Your sister has always been very good at getting what she wants. My phone buzzes again. Jessica, this time, Mom's really upset about what you said. You need to apologize. I need to stop this, I say, standing up. They're making a huge mistake. June. But I'm already grabbing my keys, anger propelling me forward. The drive to my parents' house takes 15 minutes. I rehearse what I'll say, how I'll make them see reason. They have to listen this time. I find them in the living room with Jessica and Michael, surrounded by wedding catalogs and champagne flutes. Mother's face hardens when she sees me. We're in the middle of something, she says. Yeah, you're in the middle of destroying yourselves. I pull up the mortgage documents on my phone. Want to explain this? Father stands up, his face flushing. You had no right to look into our private affairs. Private? It's public record. Just like the foreclosure will be when you can't make the payments. Jessica sets down her champagne. What's she talking about? Nothing, Mother says quickly. June is just being dramatic again. They've mortgaged everything, I say, looking directly at Jessica. The house, their savings, everything, for your wedding. Michael shifts uncomfortably. Jessica, maybe we should. Shut up, she snaps at him before turning to our parents. Is this true? Are you paying for everything? Of course we are, Mother says. You deserve. I thought Michael's family was contributing, Jessica's voice rises. You said they were handling half. Michael stands up. My parents can't. I mean, with the market being what it is. You lied to me. Jessica's perfect facade cracks. Both of you. Sweetheart, Father starts. Don't. She grabs her purse. I can't believe this. Michael, we're leaving. They storm out, leaving behind the heavy silence of unspoken truths. Mother turns to me, her eyes blazing. Are you happy now? You've ruined everything. I ruined it. You're literally bankrupting yourselves for her fantasy wedding, and I'm the problem. Get out, Father says quietly. And don't come back until you're ready to apologize. I laugh, and it sounds strange even to my ears. Apologize? For what? Caring enough to try to stop you from destroying yourselves? For not being Jessica? That's enough. Mother stands up. I won't have you speaking to us this way in our home. Fine. I head for the door, then stop. But when this all falls apart, and it will, don't come crying to me. We would never, Mother says, her voice ice cold. You've made it very clear where your loyalties lie. I turn back one last time. My loyalties. That's rich coming from someone who regretted having me from the day I was born. The color drains from her face. Father looks between us, confused. Emily, he asks. What is she talking about? But I don't stay to watch that particular bomb detonate. I walk out, letting the door slam behind me. In my car, I sit for a long moment, hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turn white. My phone buzzes again. This time it's Grandpa. Come home, June. We'll figure this out together. I start the engine, leaving behind the house that holds 22 years of rejection. It's time to stop trying to save people who never wanted to be saved in the first place. My Columbia acceptance letter sits on Grandpa's desk while he reviews my financial aid package. 2 weeks have passed since the confrontation, and the silence from my parents speaks volumes. Jessica's wedding has been postponed indefinitely, according to the Family Gossip Network. These numbers look good, Grandpa says, adjusting his reading glasses. With our savings and this scholarship. A knock at the front door interrupts him. Through the window, I spot Jessica's Mercedes in the driveway. I'll handle it, I tell him, but he shakes his head. Let her in. Sometimes the hardest conversations are the most necessary. Jessica looks smaller somehow, standing in Grandpa's study. Her designer outfit can't hide the shadows under her eyes or the way her hands keep fidgeting with her engagement ring. Michael left, she says without preamble. His startup was a scam. He took what was left of his trust fund and disappeared. I wait for the satisfaction to hit, but it doesn't come. I'm sorry. No, you're not. She sinks into a leather chair. You tried to warn everyone. God, what a mess. She looks at Grandpa. Did you know about Mom's letter? Helen showed it to me the day she received it, he says quietly. We made certain decisions that day about how to protect June. Jessica's laugh sounds hollow. Protect her. While I was being set up to fail. She turns to me. Do you know what it's like being the golden child? The pressure to be perfect. To never disappoint. Do you know what it's like being the disappointment? I counter. The one they never wanted in the first place. They're losing the house, she says abruptly. The bank called yesterday. Dad's been missing payments for months, even before my wedding plans. They've been in trouble for years, hiding it from everyone. The room seems to tilt slightly. What? They remortgaged everything trying to maintain appearances. My wedding was just the final straw. She pulls out her phone, shows me a series of texts. They're asking me to move back in with them, to help with payments. But I can't. I don't have anything left either. Grandpa clears his throat. What exactly are you asking for, Jessica? I don't know. She looks at me, really looks at me, maybe for the first time. Maybe to understand why they could never love us equally. Maybe to apologize for being part of it. Maybe. She trails off, staring at my acceptance letter. Maybe to warn you that they're planning to ask you for help. They know about your scholarship. My stomach churns. They what? Mom went through your mail before you moved out. She knows about the grant money. Jessica stands up. Don't give it to them, June. Don't let them do to you what they did to me. Jessica. I have to go. She heads for the door, then pauses. For what it's worth, I wish things had been different between us. Maybe they still can be. After she leaves, Grandpa and I sit in silence. The acceptance letter seems to mock me from his desk. They'll try to guilt you, he finally says. They'll say family helps family. They'll remind you of every sacrifice they never actually made. I know. The money in your education fund is legally yours. They can't touch it. I know that too. He leans forward. Then what's troubling you? I stare out the window, watching Jessica's taillights disappear down the street. What if revenge isn't what I thought it would be? What if letting them fail makes me just like them? There's a difference between revenge and self-preservation, he says. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is to let them face the consequences of their choices. My phone buzzes, Mother's number. I silence it without reading the message. I need to focus on school, I say finally. On building my own life. Yes, you do. He picks up the acceptance letter. And that's not revenge, June. That's survival. The phone buzzes again. This time, I turn it off completely. Tomorrow, I'll change my number. Tomorrow, I'll start packing for New York. Tomorrow, I'll begin writing my own story. But tonight, I let myself mourn the family I never really had, and celebrate the one that chose to love me anyway. The job offer from Goldman Sachs sits in my inbox like a golden ticket. 6 figures, signing bonus, everything I've worked toward at Columbia. My tiny apartment in Manhattan feels electric with possibility as I read through the details again. My phone rings, Jessica's number. We've spoken more in the past 6 months than in the previous 22 years. They're being evicted, she says without preamble. Next week. I minimize the job offer email. What happened to the payment plan? Failed. Like everything else. Her voice sounds thin, stretched. Dad's drinking now. Mom's talking about moving in with me, but I can barely afford my studio apartment. The cursor blinks on my screen, hovering over the Accept Offer button. I can't help them, Jess. I know. That's not why I called. She pauses. They're telling people you abandoned them. That you're hoarding your wealth while they suffer. They're even claiming Grandma and Grandpa turned you against them. My hand clenches around the phone. Of course they are. There's more. Mom's been calling your firm, trying to reach your future boss. Saying she needs to discuss her troubled daughter before they make a mistake hiring you. The room tilts slightly. Everything I've built, everything I've earned, suddenly feels fragile. June. You there? I have to go. I hang up, fingers already typing an email to HR. Better they hear it from me first. A knock at my door makes me jump. Through the peephole, I see Mother, looking smaller than I remember, but wearing her expensive coat like armor. I open the door but block the entrance. How did you find my address? Your grandmother. She tries to smile. May I come in? No. Her smile falters. I'm still your mother. Are you? Because mothers don't try to sabotage their children's careers. I was protecting you. She reaches for my arm. I step back. You're not ready for that kind of pressure. Come home. We can figure something out together. As a family. Family. I laugh, and it sounds like breaking glass. You mean like how you figured out Jessica's wedding? Or Dad's drinking? Or the house you're losing? We made mistakes. Her eyes fill with tears. But we love you. No, you love what I could do for you now. My job offer, my savings, that's what you love. She drops the act, her face hardening. You ungrateful. Don't. I pull out my phone, show her the email I just received. HR already knows about your calls. They've documented everything. One more attempt to contact them, and they'll file harassment charges. You would do that. To your own mother. You did this to yourself. I start closing the door. Just like everything else. If you close that door, you'll regret it, she says quietly. Family is all we have in the end. I look at her, really look at her, and for the first time, I see her clearly. The designer coat that's probably unpaid for. The desperate calculation behind her tears. The woman who wrote that letter 22 years ago, regretting my existence. No, I say. Family is what we choose. And I choose not to be your backup plan. I close the door on her protests, then slide down against it until I'm sitting on the floor. My phone buzzes with a text from Grandma. Your mother just left our house. Are you okay? Before I can respond, another email notification pops up. Goldman Sachs HR, regarding recent events. My hands shake as I open it, expecting the worst. Instead, I find support. They're increasing security at the office. They've documented everything. The position is still mine if I want it. I stand up, legs steady now, and walk to my window. 6 stories below, I watch Mother get into a taxi, already on her phone, probably moving on to her next potential savior. I click accept offer on the job email, then text Jessica, I'm okay. Are you? Her response comes quickly, getting there. Thanks for asking. And June. I'm proud of you. Something shifts inside me, like tectonic plates finding their final resting place. I've spent years trying to earn love that was never freely given. Now it's time to build something new, something honest, something mine. Starting with saying yes to my future, and goodbye to their past. The foreclosure notice arrives on my desk at Goldman Sachs via courier. Not email, not regular mail, hand-delivered, like a gauntlet thrown. My parents' house goes up for auction in 48 hours. I stare at the bank's letterhead, my fingers tracing the embossed logo. I could stop this. One phone call to the right person, one transfer from my bonus account, and they'd have another chance. My office phone rings. Jessica. They're sleeping in their car, she says. Dad's drinking worse than ever. Mom won't stop crying. I close my eyes. Where are you? Working double shifts at the diner. It's all I could find after. She trails off. After Michael took everything. After the wedding fell apart. After our parents' facade finally crumbled. I'll handle it, I hear myself say. June, no. You can't. I hang up. My computer screen shows my investment portfolio, the fruits of 2 years at Goldman. More than enough for a down payment on a modest house. Not their old one, but something sustainable. Grandpa answers on the first ring. Don't do it. You don't know what I'm planning. I know that look in your eyes. I can hear it in your voice. He sighs. Some people need to hit bottom before they can rebuild. They're sleeping in their car. And whose fault is that? My hand clenches around the phone. I can't just let them. Like they let you struggle. Like they let you feel unwanted for 22 years. This is different. Yes, he says quietly. Because you're better than they are. I pull up the real estate listings I've been secretly browsing. 3-bedroom ranch house. Good neighborhood. Within their means, if they'd actually try. I have to try, I tell him. One last time. He's silent for a long moment. Then do it with your eyes open. And protect yourself. I make the calls. Sign the papers. Set up the trust so they can't sell or refinance without my approval. Within hours, I'm standing in front of them in a McDonald's parking lot, where they've been living out of their Mercedes. Mother's mascara is smeared. Father won't meet my eyes. I hold out the keys. It's yours if you want it, I say. But there are conditions. Conditions. Mother's voice cracks. We're your parents. Exactly. And that's why there are conditions. I pull out the contract. No refinancing. No loans. Dad gets help for the drinking. You both get jobs, real jobs, not pyramid schemes or startups. Father finally looks at me. Who do you think you are? The daughter you never wanted. The one who succeeded anyway. I set the keys and contract on their hood. Take it or leave it. Mother reaches for the keys, but Father knocks them away. They skitter across the pavement. We don't need your charity, he spits. Robert, Mother hisses. Think about. No. He straightens up, swaying slightly. She thinks she's better than us. Thinks she can buy us like some kind of investment. I finish for him. No. This isn't an investment. It's a test. A test? Mother asks. To see if you can actually be parents. To see if you can put someone else first for once. I pick up the keys. But I guess I have my answer. June, please, Mother reaches for me. We can change. Can you? I look at Father, still glaring, still proud even in his defeat. At Mother, calculating even through her tears. Prove it. Get help. Get jobs. Show me you're actually trying. Then we'll talk about the house. I walk away, their protests fading behind me. In my car, I rest my head against the steering wheel, feeling the weight of their failure, and mine. I wanted to save them. Wanted to prove I was better, stronger, more capable. But some people don't want to be saved. They just want to drag you down with them. My phone buzzes. A text from Jessica. They told me what you tried to do. Thank you for trying. And thank you for not giving in. I start the car, the house keys heavy in my pocket. Maybe salvation isn't about grand gestures or proving points. Maybe it's about knowing when to walk away, even when it breaks your heart. Especially then. 2 weeks after my failed attempt to help them, Mother calls with news that makes my blood freeze. We found a house. The bank approved our loan application. I know it's impossible. Their credit is destroyed. Unless the property records confirm my suspicion. They used my name. My credit. My identity. I stand in their new driveway now, watching guests arrive for their housewarming party. Mother's already redecorated, hanging her precious crystal chandelier in the foyer. Through the window, I see familiar faces, family friends, colleagues, all here to celebrate their miraculous recovery. Jessica meets me at the door, her face tight. They're telling everyone you gave them the house as a gift. That you begged them to accept it. Where did they get my information? Mom still had your old documents from when you lived at home. She hands me a glass of wine. I tried to stop them, but nothing. I down the wine in one gulp. Where are they? They're holding court in the living room, Mother glowing as she describes their wonderful daughter's generosity. Father. Sober for the first time in months, nodding along. June. Mother spreads her arms wide. Everyone, here's our guardian angel. The room turns to me, faces beaming. I feel their expectations like a noose. Tell them, I say quietly. Mother's smile falters. Tell them what, darling? Tell them how you forged my signature. How you stole my identity to get this loan. The room goes silent. Someone's glass hits the floor with a crash. June, Father steps forward. You're confused. We discussed this. No. I pull out my phone, show the screen. I just got off the phone with the bank's fraud department. They have the paperwork. They have the security footage of you both signing my name. Mother's face hardens. We had no choice. You abandoned us. Abandoned you. I offered to help. I gave you a chance. A chance. She laughs bitterly. You wanted to control us. To make us beg. Just like you've always done, playing the victim. I found the letter, I cut her off. The one you wrote to Grandma when I was born. About regretting me. The color drains from her face. Father looks confused. What letter? Oh, you didn't know. I turn to him. Your wife wrote to Grandma saying what a mistake I was. How perfect life was before I came along. I face Mother again. Is that why you did this? One final attempt to prove I'm the mistake. Emily. Father's voice shakes. Is this true? It was postpartum depression, she stammers. I didn't mean. Like you didn't mean to steal my identity. I pull out another document. The police are already involved. They'll be here within the hour. You wouldn't, Mother whispers. We're your parents. No. You're criminals who happen to share my DNA. I look around the room at the shocked faces. Everyone out. Now. They file out quietly, leaving behind half-empty glasses and uneaten hors d'oeuvres. Jessica stays, standing by the door. You did it, she says softly. You finally stood up to them. Mother collapses onto the sofa, tears streaming. Father just stares at the wall, shoulders slumped. The police will be here soon, I tell them. You can either leave now, or wait for them. Your choice. Where would we go? Mother asks. That's not my problem anymore. I head for the door, then stop. The letter you wrote. You were right about one thing. Life would have been perfect without me in it. Just not for the reasons you thought. I walk out into the cool evening air, leaving behind the sound of Mother's sobs and Father's broken silence. Jessica follows me to my car. What happens now? She asks. Now? I look back at the house, at the crystal chandelier casting shadows through the window. Now I finally stop trying to fix what was never meant to be fixed. Police sirens wail in the distance, growing closer. I get in my car, roll down the window. You coming? Jessica glances back at the house, then slides into the passenger seat. We drive away as red and blue lights paint the street behind us, illuminating the end of one story and the beginning of another. The real estate agent's heels click against the empty hardwood floors of what was briefly my parents' house. After their arrest, the bank agreed to let me sell it rather than foreclose, one final act of cleanup in a mess I didn't create. The offers are all above asking, she says, shuffling papers. The market's hot right now. I nod, walking through rooms still bearing ghost marks of Mother's decorating attempts. The crystal chandelier is gone, sold to pay for their legal fees. Jessica helped me pack up what little remained, both of us silent as we boxed away the fragments of our broken family. My phone buzzes, a text from Grandma, found something else in the attic you should see. Come by when you're done. I'll take the highest offer, I tell the agent. Rush the closing. She beams. I'll draw up the paperwork right away. Standing alone in the empty living room, I remember Mother's tears, Father's silence, the police lights painting the walls. Their court date is next week. Jessica's planning to testify about years of financial manipulation. I submitted my statement in writing, my final words to the people who gave me life but never gave me love. The doorbell rings. Jessica stands on the porch, holding a cardboard box. Found these at their storage unit, she says, setting it down. Thought you should have them. Inside are photo albums I've never seen. Pictures of me as a baby, dozens of them. Mother holding me in the hospital, actually smiling. Father teaching me to walk. Birthday parties I barely remember. There's more, Jessica says quietly. Letters Mom wrote but never sent. To you, to Grandma. They tell a different story. It doesn't change anything. No, she agrees. But maybe it makes it more complicated. I close the box. I'm selling the house. After their legal fees and restitution, there might be something left. Keep it, she says. Put it toward your future. I've got a job interview next week, a real one, at an accounting firm. Time I stood on my own feet too. The real estate agent returns with contracts. As I sign, Jessica watches from the doorway. You know what's weird, she says later as we walk to our cars. I always thought you were the lucky one. You had the strength to break free. To build something real. I had help. Grandma and Grandpa. No. She touches my arm. You had something inside you. Something they couldn't break. At our grandparents' house, Grandma hands me an envelope, yellow with age. Inside is another letter from Mother, dated just after my first birthday. Dear Mom. I was wrong about June. The regret I felt. It wasn't about her. It was about me. My fears. My inadequacies. She deserves better than what I can give her. Maybe one day she'll understand that the problem was never her, it was always me. I just hope she grows up stronger than I am. Love. Emily. She never sent this one either, Grandma says softly. Would it have made a difference if she had? Perhaps not. But it shows that even the darkest stories have other pages we don't see. I fold the letter carefully, place it in the box with the others. Not to keep, but to remind me that the truth is rarely simple, and healing rarely complete. The house sold, I tell her. Above asking price. She smiles. And what will you do with your share? I think about the startup I've been secretly planning. About the investment strategies I've developed at Goldman. About all the things I learned watching my parents destroy themselves with debt and desperation. I'm going to build something, I say. Something that helps people understand money before it destroys them. Something that might have made a difference, if we'd known sooner. Grandma hugs me, and I breathe in her familiar lavender scent. Then you've learned the most valuable lesson of all, she whispers. How to turn pain into purpose. Outside, the setting sun paints the sky in shades of possibility. Jessica's car is still in the driveway. She and Grandpa are probably discussing her job interview. We're building something new from the ashes of what burned. Not forgiveness, exactly. Not yet. But maybe something stronger, the understanding that while we can't choose how our story begins, we absolutely can choose how it continues.